I call to order the November 9th, 2020 Henderson County Board of Public Education board meeting. Would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may all be seated. All right. First up is the agenda approval. I will take a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Give it to Rick.
Yes.
His last day. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda's approved. And next we get to have a little bit of fun. We're going to do some recognitions today. Yes. Oh. Absolutely. Okay, so we do have Miss Case with us by telephone today. She's going to be joining us. So we will be doing roll call votes from here forward. Do we need to do that for the agenda, Council?
I mean, everyone who is Miss Case electronic at this point can be due by statute.
All right. We had a second for Rick. Mr. Egolf?
Yes.
Mr. Absher?
Yes.
Ms. Holt?
Yes.
And Ms. Case? Ms. Case, can you hear us?
Unmute your mic. I'm trying, yes.
There she is. She woke us up. And I'm a yes as well. Agenda is approved. All right. Now we would get on to recognitions. Dr. John Bryant.
Mr. Craven, members of the board, thank you. This is truly a bittersweet day.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those days that we kind of look at each other and we're reminded of that expression about don't cry because it's over, but smile because it happened. And this is exactly that. And it really starts with the gentleman that is to my left, and man who has been a mentor and an inspiration to so many of us, but more importantly, has been the heartbeat of this school system. He has been the heartbeat of our passion for children and for our communities. But he's been the kind of man who has said, there's but one way to lead, and it is with your heart first. I can personally say that there's no one I've worked alongside who I have greater respect for, because of the way he has served this community and the way that he has led each of us. And he truly is someone who has challenged each of us to be better people, to be better educators, and really to be better citizens of Henderson County. And I'm so grateful to call him not a mentor, but a friend. And while he likes to remind us how many days he has left, it makes us very sad to think about how much time he has left. But this is one of those seminal moments, because this is his final board meeting with each of us together. And so with that in mind, I would like to ask Mr. Craven to share a few words of resolution with the board.
This is a resolution honoring Mr. Hardy Bo Caldwell. Whereas Bo Caldwell is retiring after 36 years of faithful and generous service to Henderson County Public Schools, and whereas he was an inspirational educator and athletics coach, and whereas he served as a beloved school administrator, school principal, and district administrator, and whereas he crafted the mission and strategic success of the school system as its superintendent, and whereas he demonstrated exceptional leadership and service to our school system in every capacity at his charge, and whereas he employed his concern for people, his community spirit, his experience as a leader to ensure the tradition of outstanding service to the students of Henderson County, and whereas he devoted countless hours to the development and mentorship of future school leaders, and whereas for nearly 4 decades he has been to all who know him a consummate professional, a wise counselor, and a loyal friend, and whereas he has been a tireless servant to public education and will be dearly missed by all who have worked with him. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Henderson County Board of Public Education does hereby convey its abiding respect and profound gratitude to Mr. Hardy Bo Caldwell for his outstanding meritorious service to Henderson County Public Schools and who will forever be revered among the finest leaders in public education on this 9th day of November, 2020.
Thank you. Allergies always get me at this time of year. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it, Ms. Holt. Number one, to Ms. Holt, Coach Wood, Ms. Corn. You were on the board that made a decision to name me superintendent. And I would just like to say thank you. Thank you for your vote of confidence. Thank you for putting me in a place that I truly love as Henderson County. And when I was talking to a student today about Henderson County, he said, what does Henderson County truly mean to you as far as Henderson County Public Schools? It's not the buildings, it's not the bricks, and then it's not the mortar, which I know we've had tussles and arguments about that. But it's not that. Those are great. It's the people. It is truly the people. From the children to the staff, district office, to the transportation, to maintenance, to you as a Board of Education. Henderson County Public Schools, it's about people. And I always ended a meeting by, it's been my honor, it's been my pleasure to serve. And right now I can truly say it has been my honor and pleasure to serve Henderson County Public Schools for 36 years. Thank you.
Resolution for you
Thank you.
and a nice big gift for you to take.
Oh, heavens.
It's an absolute pleasure, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do I get to open this now?
Open it.
Yeah.
Like Christmas. All right.
You want a picture of me like kissing a pig or wearing a diaper or.
All the things that you do.
Those were presented to me the other day. I'm in the living room. I told my wife I wanted to put them up.
The other, yeah, that side right there. Yeah. I think so. Maybe not.
I wish they'd bring a knife out, but.
This is a little bigger than the normal sticky.
It is, yes, yes. Take that into consideration. Thank you. Well, we don't like doing things the easy way around here.
Which side should be open?
Yeah, that one.
Right there.
So just slide it out? I'm almost scared now.
Well, we picture this going a little bit easier.
There you go. Now.
There we go.
Oh.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
She'll let you hang that one.
Thank you. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
It's upside down.
Yeah, turn it around.
Yeah, foot, it's up to, there you go. There you go. Come on down.
No, this is, somebody said, well, how's Jackie thinking about you retiring? You know, she's finally getting all the kids out now. I'm here. But I just need to thank her. You know, I just remember the days that we started teaching and coaching and going one way and I was going the other. Then I became principal. I was principal for 2 years at an elementary school, which was really great. That time Bryce was born and had colic, which would start screaming about 1:30. And then she'd call me about 3:30. Where are you? Get the bus home and work it out. Then I went to Apple Valley, which did athletic duties, other things. So our kids grew up with us at our school, either in her classroom or my office. Did interviews. And on Saturday morning, I would go to Apple Valley early and work, and it was good to get him out of the house. And so he would go with me. He would sit in the conference room with a sausage biscuit. That's what we did. Sometimes my children, I felt like I spent more time with other people's kids. So, then come here, and I was thinking, Coach, you mentioned so many board meetings you have. I think I've had 18 years of board meetings. I don't think I missed one. Late nights.
Mhm.
Very late nights. Always been there.
Oh. That ovation was for Jackie.
That's his, yes.
Now, is this
Some
what's
shoes.
in the box?
Uh-oh.
This is something else.
It might
It's a
be something
diorama.
scary in there.
It is what it says in the box.
Yeah, but do you see what they are?
See what they are. I
They're
sure
golf
do.
New
shoes.
golf shoes.
Whoa.
Nice.
Yes, I'll be playing on Tuesday mornings and Thursday mornings. Too. I'll be thinking of you while I'm on. Call your husband, Dr. King. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Putting you in this position for years.
Thank you, sir. All right, Dr. Bryant.
Yes, sir. Before we go on, I do want to add one thing. I had the real pleasure about a month and a half ago to attend a superintendent's regional conference. And I've always known the respect that Ms. Caldwell has here in our community, as someone who everyone looks up to. But everybody in this room and everybody who's watching and everybody who will watch this needs to know that respect exists across the state. All the other superintendents feel the same way. And one of them pulled me aside and said, "Don't forget something." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Bo knows." And that is the truth. He certainly does. And I know no finer gentleman to serve and continue to serve through his example. And so I appreciate that. But this is also a bittersweet day for a couple of our cherished and loved board members who have given decades of service to this school system and to this community and to children who they've had a lasting impact on for some time. And so Ms. Holt has some words to share about Ms. Korn.
Mary Louise Korn, after 16 years of faithful service to the Henderson County Board of Public Education, Mary Louise Korn has decided to retire from public service. In addition to her tenure as a board member, Ms. Korn served 33 additional years as a math instructor and administrator, serving in many roles such as the firm and fair principal of West Henderson High School Falcons and the tough as nails but loved us math teacher at Rugby Middle School. Ms. Korn has been a board member since 2004. Her advocacy led to improvements in facilities at Flat Rock, Rugby, Dana, Apple Valley, and North Henderson. She was also instrumental in new building projects at Sugarloaf, Mills River, Hillendale, the Innovative High School, Edneyville, and the current project at Hendersonville High School. Ms. Korn has worked with 3 superintendents, Dr. Stephen Page, Mr. David Jones, and Mr. Bo Caldwell. As an educator, Mrs. Korn has always been considered an advocate for every child. Mrs. Korn was inducted to the Henderson County Henderson County Education Foundation Hall of Fame in 2009. Mrs. Korn's service is greatly appreciated by the students past and present, teachers, administrators, staff, and community members. Please join me in expressing our sincere gratitude to Mrs. Korn for 16 years of service to the Board of Education as part of her 49-year commitment to public education. Congratulations.
Come this way.
Mhm. No, this way, this way.
There you go. There you go.
I can't do this without notes. I find myself not being able to think of the next word about half the time. Thank goodness that didn't happen when I was teaching algebra, but it really has been an honor. I can't say any better than Mr. Caldwell, which I'm from now on going to call Bo, to serve on this board for 16 years. And, you know, since there's an election every 2 years, that means I've served with 32 different boards.
That's right.
It's been rather interesting, to say the least. And it was an interesting transition from teacher to principal to school board member. But each part has been connected to this wonderful, wonderful community of professionals in such a different way. My classroom was filled with students, and my job was to teach them and to care for them. As principal, my school was filled with students and teachers and many support people. But my job was to provide an atmosphere where success would be achieved in different ways at many levels. No one knows a school better than the principal. As a school board member, it is the big picture, caring for people and leading the school system without getting in the way of our professionals on the ground, both here at the central office and those at those schools. Our Henderson County boards have been very successful, and I think they will be, continue to be. And I think it's because we kind of like each other, even when we disagree. We listen to each other. We talk to and not at each other. Here lately, maybe after 4 hours, we talk too much, but I still see that as a strength, that we talk about things. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, this board. Thank you, the community, for entrusting me with this wonderful opportunity to serve. And I wish you well, and I pray that 2021 brings less trauma
Yes.
and more clear direction to your decision making, because you've got each other and you have a great leadership team of professionals to lean on. So thank you so much.
As Dr. King comes over, she has a gift for you. Yeah, ma'am.
Not yet.
And then
Okay.
she and Mr. Caldwell would like to share.
Oh,
So move this a little bit. You can't see it.
Oh, okay.
So we can see you guys on the screen.
Didn't see it.
We can get that as close as possible.
Ms. Court, I'm not giving you your gift until I take a minute to talk about you. It's my pleasure to talk for just a moment about someone who I adore and who has been a mentor to me for many years. I know there are people watching, and indeed even some people in the room, who got to call you their teacher. I was lucky enough to call you my principal, and I remember those years fondly. Some of you may not know that Ms. Korn has come out of the rafters in a Santa Claus suit at West Anderson High School more than once. She has dressed up as everything in the world, like principals do. But what I remember most about her was her instructional leadership. I'll never forget, before there were things called benchmarks, you had us looking at goal summaries and talking about common formative assessments and really raising the bar for students. I always knew you cared about me as a teacher. I always felt like you had my back as a teacher. What I've loved about you as a board member is that you've had the back of this community.
Mm-hmm.
You've watched the back of the kids in this community, of the staff in this community, the parents in this community. And I just want to say thank you for that. I mean, basically half a century of public service. That's amazing. And we are grateful for your leadership. Thank you, Ms. Korn.
Absolutely.
More than that. Thank you. Want me to open
Sure, if you want to. Open it all
it?
up.
Heavy. Gold.
I made it.
Heavy
Yes.
gold. You made it.
He willed it in his garage.
Please take a long time voting to make me look.
Well, there's one thing about being old and being here a long time. You've got lots of memories about Dr. King and Mr. Caldwell and his wife and lots of kids. And you can't hardly go anywhere in this county there's not somebody there that you had in class or you've met with as I feel very privileged to have been on that board when we hired both Mr. Jones, Mr. Caldwell, and now, oh, yes, Dr. Bryant.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
thank you. It is heavy.
It's your Emmy.
That's an Emmy, yeah.
My husband will say, did you give her something heavy?
You can throw at him.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's
Oh, wow,
beautiful.
that is gorgeous. It says to honor your service to the Board of Education, Henderson County Public School with the apple. It is
That's
gorgeous.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Gordon, you talked about being a teacher. I hope you saw Mr. Caldwell raise his hand.
I did.
He raised his hand immediately. The second of our board members that we'd like to honor this evening is Coach Rick Wood. Mr. Jay Egoff has some words to share about Coach Wood.
Rick Wood, a devoted coach and mentor from the very beginning. Coach Rick Wood steps away from service on the Board of Public Education after being first elected in 2008. Always a tireless advocate for public education, Coach Wood served alongside 3 superintendents, Dr. Page, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Caldwell. Coach Wood spent 17 years at West Henderson until he retired in 2006, wrapping up a teaching and coaching career that spanned 40 years. He coached at Edneyville for 2 years, and his West High Falcons were undefeated before falling in the 92 state title game. The 94-95 squad proudly included West Henderson's current principal, Mr. Luke Manuel. Coach Wood's hallmarks are and have always been teamwork, sportsmanship, citizenship, and academics. His wisdom and coaching journey were shared with each of us in his autobiography, 40 Seasons, The Life of a High School Basketball Coach, now available on Amazon. Or maybe not, I don't know. It doesn't say, I just kind of threw that in. Sorry. Coach Wood was inducted into the Henderson County Education Hall of Fame in 2014 and may own a record few Board of Education members in the history of the state can claim perfect attendance for every board meeting for 12 straight years.
Wow.
Now, it says, please join me, but I want to say also, you're very involved in the community with the Kiwanis, correct? So, and this all talks about education and everything, but I know you're also involved in many other aspects for the benefit of Henderson County, so we appreciate that. So please join me in expressing our sincere gratitude to Coach Rick Wood for 12 years of service to the Board of Education and lifetime of service to public education.
Thank you, Jay. And I'll see you after the meeting to pay you for that plug.
Yes, sir. No problem.
I'd like to ask my partner to come up here and join me with Beverly. Appreciate her coming today. And we truly have been a team of 2 for December, 49 years.
Wow.
And he has made a lot of sacrifices to allow me to pursue so many things, including the serving on the school board. Between us, we have 81 years teaching experience. She had 41. She beat me by 1 year. And
Gotta make your free throws.
but a lot of times when issues about elementary schools where I didn't know much more about it, serving the school board, I'd go to her and say, what about, what do we need to do about education, elementary school? She's been a big help. But like Mary Louise, I had made a few notes here too. It's been an honor to serve on our school board, and I want to thank the voters of Henderson County for giving me that opportunity. I've been able to serve with 13 different school board members and 3 different school superintendents, as Jay mentioned, during my 12 years on the board. And I want to especially thank Barbara Blaine, Sharon Walker, Tony Jones, and Kathy Johnson, who served our board so well as administrative assistants during my tenure. We have an outstanding school system here in Henderson County, and under the able leadership of our new superintendent, Dr. John Bryant, and the newly constituted school board, I see continued good things ahead for our school system. It is good to be retiring in such good company. Mary Louise Corn, who I had the opportunity to work with at West Henderson and on this board for so long. And our retiring school superintendent, Bo Caldwell, who I taught and coached with at Edneyville some 33 years ago. And that was my first year in Henderson County. And I had the opportunity, I assisted Bo with the JV football. We coached, and he assisted me with the basketball coaching. We had a good partnership there. And the co-captain of my varsity team there was none other than Scott Rhodes. So, and I had the opportunity to teach with Jan down the hall at West Henderson. I appreciate, she gave me a lot of help with my technology. When it started coming in, I said, Jan, I need some help with some technology work, but she was great. And as I've already said, finally, I want to recognize Beverly and publicly thank her for the sacrifices that she had made to allow me to serve on the board so many years. So it's been a pleasure.
Coach Wood,
Yes, sir.
that former co-captain would like to say a few words.
Oh, okay.
So I got too much of my father in me. I do get emotional at times, so forgive me. But there's 2 individuals, you being one of them, that I was there on your very first day in Henderson County at Edneyville. And I had an opportunity to privately share some of this, and I wanted to also do it publicly. 33 years ago, I had the opportunity to play for you. You've always been coach, not Mr. Wood, but Coach Wood. And so many of the things that you instilled in me 33 years ago, I still use to this day, specifically being organized and how you treat people. Those things have always stood out, Coach. And I told you privately, I love you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity 33 years ago to instill confidence in a young man as a leader. And those things have carried on to today. And for that, I can't say thank you enough. I had an opportunity to work with your wife. These 2 together have got to be 2 of the best 2 man and wife to ever work in our county. Both of you wonderful educators, and we've been blessed to have you here. And I just want to say thank you for everything you've done for Henderson County Public Schools. Congratulations to you as well. And I won't want to lose this opportunity to say the same thing to you. Coach, I was there on the first day. I'm going to be there on the last. I love you. Now your next job is to go out and get us a good place to work so we can get free golf. All right? The Cliffs would be a great thing if you can hook us up.
We'll work it out.
All right. Coach, cheers. This is for you. I'll try to put my mask back on.
I better know what it is.
Yes, sir. We call that previewing.
Okay. Might need some help again.
Get the keys out.
Keys out. All right. Good. Thank you, sir. Oh, it is heavy. Yeah. Oh, nice. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Mr. Craven, our final recognition tonight is to Mr. Michael Absher. And Coach Wood has some words that he'd like to share about Mr. Absher.
Mr. Absher has been a member of the Board of Education for 4 years. Elected in 2016, Mr. Absher has been an advocate for students with barriers to success. Mr. Absher's time on the board, including the ribbon cutting of the innovative high schools and Edneyville Elementary School, as well as the beginning of construction at Hendersonville High School. Mr. Absher will always carry the distinction of having been a student while Mr. Caldwell was principal at Atkinson Elementary School, and having been a student while Dr. Bryant was an assistant principal at East Henderson High School. One might say Mr. Absher helped to raise 2 future superintendents of Henderson County Public Schools. Most notably, Mr. Absher has been a voice of care and concern for every student and family in Henderson County. We celebrate his 4-year service to the Board of Education and know that he will continue to be a champion of public education in the years to come.
Mr. Absher, we got a small gift for you, but before I go, Ms. Corn, thank you. I've got some words that I'm going to save later regarding being a student. You know, I was over there raising my hand. I was afraid of the yardstick. Coach Wood, it was always, like I said, I knew when Coach Wood came out there and we were coaching junior high football, and all of a sudden he had a playbook about that thick for defenses. I said, wow, look at this, man. This is great, because I think I had about 4 plays and he had a whole defensive playbook. But to be honest with you, I think, Coach, when people talk about Coach and everything else, to me, when I think of Coach Wood's a true gentleman, absolutely a true gentleman. And I knew that I would have to dial it down. The very first ball game, I'm his assistant on the bench, and the official just did not see what I saw. And so I jumped up. And the next thing you know, I felt something pulling me. And it was Coach Wood pulling me down. And I do appreciate it. I had to learn to calm myself down on that sideline. So thank you, because once again, a very true gentleman. And Mr. Absher, this about kindergarten. You're right. Mr. Absher is the only person I remember in kindergarten that came in a, what was it, a dump truck? A dump truck that blocked the whole road, okay? we had traffic backed up all the way down Price Road there at Atkinson. Michael, it's been a pleasure to basically watch you grow up. And I think, Michael, continue to care for the community and the work that you do for the students you serve. And we need people like you, Michael, working with the homeless, working for that cause, and never get weary, okay, of doing what's right for our community. So with that, I'll give you this. Mr. Craven, thank you. Those are the recognitions for the evening.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Next up, we're going to have board chair observations, and I've got a few today. If I can get to it. The first thing I would like to say, I would like to thank all of those who voted for me and saw me fit to run for another 4 years to lead the school system. I truly appreciate it, and I don't take that for granted, and I look forward to hopefully getting back to more normal school business here pretty soon. But I certainly appreciate that. I'd really like to thank the kids that had the mock election. I think the mock elections have always been great. I did them when I was at Hendersonville High School myself. I know we had a little bit of disagreement on Facebook with some of those folks that were chosen, but I appreciate the kids for voting for me. My kids came home every day just excited to learn about the process. And did you know this about the Electoral College? And did you know that about how many senators and how many House of Reps representatives we have? And it's a really good process, and it's good for kids for us to get them started to see why it's so important to go out and vote. The next thanks I have is to my family. Running for public office, everybody here and anybody that's run for public office, it's not easy. You're sticking your neck out there. You're putting yourself in a lot of harm's way sometimes, especially in the Facebook worlds of the day. And my family tends to take the brunt of it. And I really like to thank my wife for being there, my campaign manager, lockstep with me for being there by my side and deleting her Facebook every other day so she doesn't say something to somebody that's made some offhand comment. Thank you. I'd also like to say thanks to all the candidates that ran this year. It's not easy. It's very difficult. The easy part's over, and now the hard work begins. And we look forward to 3 new folks, Ms. Revis, Ms. Caskey, and Mr. Bridges joining this board. Michael, I appreciate you being on here with us. You care about the kids, and I really do appreciate your time on this board. You bring a different perspective for sure. And Rick, you and I have not always seen eye to eye, especially the first couple of years that we were on this board, but I think we have really come together, especially this last year as chair and vice chair. And I think Mary Louise said it best. We put things aside and make decisions that are right for the kids, not a Republican decision, not a Democrat decision, a libertarian decision, or any other decision. Just what do we feel is right for the kids? And I never had to guess what you were thinking. I knew that you were there for the right reasons. And Miss Korn, well, for the first 3 years, they sat you beside me so you could just hit me anytime that you wanted to. And I appreciate that. I needed it from time to time. And if I'm being completely honest, when I joined the board 4 years ago, if you would have asked me, who do you think you would have the least in common with? I would have said it was you. But I cannot thank you enough for being who you are, for being just a vocal advocate for kids, saying what's on your mind, but always having the back of these folks right here.
Absolutely.
No matter what decision was made, you had their best interests at heart every single time. And I've learned a tremendous amount from you. And for that, I certainly appreciate it. And last and certainly not least is Mr. Caldwell. We kind of started this together. I think you came the superintendent about a couple weeks, a month before I came on board, and we kind of learned this thing as we went. And you are as gracious as any human I've ever met in the face of complete chaos. It used to be, yeah, it has been. It used to be, people mad at you about if you called school off and it didn't snow that day. Those decisions seem a lot easier than any of the decisions that we've had to make over these last 9-10 months. I don't even know how long it's been these days. I'll miss you sitting in that chair, and it's been an absolute honor and a pleasure working beside you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's all I have for board chair observations. Now, board member observations. Ms. Holt, Michael.
Yeah, if I can just share a couple words. First of all, I appreciate all of y'all in this room, whether we saw eye to eye. I can look at Amy. I know we butted heads quite often, but I do appreciate your admiration to the school system and defending and saying what you want whenever you want. It does take courage, and I do appreciate that. No matter what the future may hold, I just wanted to say that. Blair, I respect your candor, and we've not always agreed either, but in the long run we did what we thought was best. Coach Wood, you've actually been one of the biggest mentors that I've had being on the board. You've been able to bounce off ideas with you and kind of just trying to help understand a lot of it. It's just been an honor to be able to serve with you. Ms. Corn, I just love how blunt and honest you are. And, you know, every time the lottery came up, you asked the same question, you know, where's that? Jay Egoff, you know, we haven't served much, but I've known you ever since I was born. Still bring all the Messiah Christmas pageant stuff into it and still brings those memories. You know, to Bo Caldwell, you know, at least we can say we're going out at the same time. I mean, he's been so awesome. I just still remember that I was terrified to going into school my kindergarten year. And, you know, Grandma, when she walked me in there, she's like, you'll be taken care of. And from that moment, you know, Henderson County Schools have been my home and always will be. And two, I think the most important thing, as Blair has said before, that a board gets to do is to hire the next superintendent. And I have no doubt that we've hired one of the next best superintendents in Henderson County. I still remember of all the time that I had trouble. John Bryant and Matt Grubmeyer took care of me in high school. And I will never forget that. So thank y'all. But this is not the end of me, so.
Thank you, Mr. Epsham. Mr. Egoff?
I want to say something real quick. This past election, I was telling my son that I think everybody got victories. And, you know, I think that what you were talking about, the mock election, you know, if you take a step back and you take the emotion out of it, I mean, just the fact that we are a free country and we decide every 2 years, every 4 years, who our leaders are. And we vote. And I mean, there's so many countries that can't do that. And there's so many, you know, and I just think, you know, I truly, you know, we're all blessed to be in this country and have our leaders chosen the way they are. And then we have the mock elections and we teach our kids. And I'm constantly telling my children, you know, why it's important to get involved and why it's important to have your say. And, you know, and nobody's going to ever agree with everything you ever say, but just, you know, just it's so valuable to have that. So when you said that, it reminded me of that and how thankful we are. And, you know, again, I was telling my son, whether if you really look into it, there are a lot of victories for a lot of people. And I think, you know, this election worked out great. Thank you,
Mr. Egoff. Ms. Case, do you have anything? She's still with us? Ms. Case?
I'm still here.
Okay, do you have any words?
Yeah. Mary Louise and Rick and Bo and I go back, way back. And I'm just sorry I can't be there, Rick and Mary Louise and Bo, to celebrate with you. But it's been an honor to know them throughout the years and to teach with them and to be the mentor next door to Mr. Caldwell. That was some year. And then, but anyway, you know, I appreciate all y'all done for kids in Henderson County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Case. Would you guys like to add anything else? No. All right. All right, we are going to move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments from today, Kathy?
We did not have any at the start of the meeting.
No, all right. We had public comments that were emailed in. As a reminder, we are going to be posting those after this meeting online for all to see and read. All of the board was given those in advance, as well as the administration team to go over those. We are allowing people into our meetings now. So if you have a comment that you would like to make in person, please come down. You can socially distance, wear your mask, and you can deliver those comments. Moving on, we will we will take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Egolf,
Yes.
Ms. Holt,
Yes.
I'm a yes, Mr. Wood,
Yes.
and Ms. Case. Ms. Case, do you approve the consent agenda? I think we're losing her, aren't we?
I think that was a yes.
Is that a yes? Okay, that's a yes.
Yes.
Yes, there it is. Consent is approved. We have no old business today, so we're going to move on to new business. This is the beginning teacher support plan. Dr. Jan King.
Thank you, Mr. Craven. Good evening, board. The first item under new business, if you'll indulge me for just a minute before we talk about the changes to the beginning teacher support plan. So we can give a shout out to Henderson County's beginning teacher of the year, Miss Shanice Hill. I hope Miss Hill is listening or watching. She is a product of Henderson County Public Schools. She's a second-year teacher, math teacher at Apple Valley Middle School in 6th grade. And we get the honor of choosing a beginning teacher of the year who then competes at the next level. So she is now in competition at the state level for beginning teachers of the year. But she's a good representation. She's an amazing teacher, but she's a great representation of why beginning teacher support is so important. She was very involved in the process as a first-year teacher. What you have to consider today is a minor change to our county's beginning teacher support plan based on a change that you'll note there in general statute. I put the change in language at the very end of the plan. It's in red. And it essentially, the law requires our first-year teachers at the end of their first year, as well as their supervising principal, to participate in the recent graduate survey. Those surveys are intended to help make sure that a pre-service program, a university or college program, actually does help you prepare for the challenges of teaching in a classroom. In essence, to marry theory and practice together. It is meant to give feedback to our institutions of higher education. And that's the only change suggested. The plan has been, the wording of this has been run by our regional education facilitator, Miss Amy Lauder, and she says that it will pass the muster at the state level if you choose to pass it. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Jan, it's Dot.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have a question, but a comment. Shanice was a student in my classroom, and all she ever wanted to be was a teacher. And it wasn't easy for her to get this education, but I am so proud of her because she has just become phenomenal. And she wanted to come back here home to teach, and I have been in her classroom, and the kids are just so excited about her, and I'm so excited for this honor for her.
Ms. Case, thank you for adding that. It was very fun. We went in while she was teaching. We were in Plan C when she found out. We went in and her students were online. So we got to wave and tell them that their teacher had been selected as the beginning teacher of the year. But Ms. Case, thanks for adding that. She is quite a gem, and we hope she continues to choose Henderson County as her professional home.
Absolutely.
And board, I would like to say with all the plans that you do approve, this one is extremely important.
Yeah.
Because right now in this world of public education, when we hire a beginning teacher, we need to do everything we can to keep those young teachers in our classrooms. We work with them, we teach them, and it's so important because you're going to hear me later start talking about we have positions that right now are sometimes going to get hard to fill. So when we have these new teachers, this is a plan. I know you have a lot of plans come in front of you, but for somebody who's going out, I can tell you my true love is beginning teachers because we've got to be able to hold on to these great teachers that we have in our school system. Yeah, thank you.
Especially keep the ones that want to come back home to let them stay home.
Absolutely.
Amen.
All right, I will take a motion when someone's ready.
I move we approve the updated beginning teacher support plan.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Egolf,
Yes.
Mr. Absher,
Yes.
Ms. Holt,
Yes.
Ms. Case,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. It is approved. Moving on, we are going to the school improvement plan. Dr. Jan King.
Thank you, Mr. Craven. School improvement plans follow 2-year cycles, and when we sent these to you for preview, I noted in there that these are going to look different from anything you've ever seen. School improvement plans, like everything else, have gone from paper pencil plans to typed typewriter plans to now web-based tool that is provided free from the state of North Carolina. We are learning as a district the NC Star IndiStar tool. But what's lovely about the tool is there are 130 key indicators that can be boiled down to 12 key indicators that research says are important to school improvement. So all 23 of our schools have moved their school improvement plans into the NC Star platform. If you approve the plans today, they will be made available tomorrow for anybody in the public to view, to log in. But it should be noted that if you approve them today, they won't look the same in December or January or February, because this tool allows the plan to be a continuous improvement plan. And this will allow the public and the board to see the changes over the next 2 years as schools continually monitor their goals and put those action steps in place. One of the nicest things that we've seen about NC Star is that it distributes the workload. So you don't have just a few people doing a lot of work. You'll see lots of tasks that are assigned to different staff in there. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions about school improvement plans. But before I do, I'm going to give a shout out to all of our school improvement teams, to the parents who serve on school improvement teams, because writing a school improvement plan during COVID has looked a little different.
Yeah.
And some of our plans and our goals didn't make sense given the current situation. So you'll see some language in there about reaching all learners, engaging all learners, and that has certainly been a challenge.
Absolutely. Any questions for Dr. King?
I have two questions, Blair.
Yes, ma'am.
Jan, have we been using this program?
Some schools used it last year, Ms. Case, because it was required for any schools that were identified with a subgroup gap or a graduation rate issue. So we had a few schools using it last year, and then we moved it to everybody this year so that schools didn't have to write two plans. Plus this plan, all of our neighbors were using the tool, and it does keep you very focused on continuous improvement. But yes, ma'am, a couple of schools were, but this is the first year for district-wide implementation.
Okay. And my other question is, Jan, it's still going to let schools have specific goals that's needed at their school, right? It's not taking that away.
Absolutely. They have complete autonomy as a team to choose those goals and to vote on them. And the language, it just gives them some guidance about what successful schools do for their consideration and discussion.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Of course.
Anyone else? Good deal. I will take a motion.
I move that Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the 2020-2022 school improvement plan, process and plans as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Egoff,
Approved, yes.
Ms. Holt,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Ms. Case,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. It passes. Next, we're going to have this is going to be Dr. John Bryant. This is going to be on our public school enterprise fleet management. We're going to have a gentleman from Enterprise give us a little presentation here. So take it away.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Craven, members of the board. And before I introduce our guest from Enterprise, just a little bit of backstory as it relates to the summary request being brought to you today. If you remember back to the capital projects that were approved for the 2020-2021 school year, we have historically purchased vehicles whenever they've been needed to be replaced in our fleet. So there's $70,000 of budgeted dollars in our current capital budget for the purchase of a couple of vehicles as it relates to continuing to have a replacement schedule for our fleet. As I've shared with this board, we have been exploring, Mr. Socio and myself, for some time, fleet management and the opportunities that potentially presents to us to not only update a couple of vehicles each year, but a number of them from our fleet and continue to cycle and have a much more current and viable option moving forward. And so we are joined today by Chad Elbert, who is with Enterprise Fleet Management, who's been working with Mr. Socia and I specifically. He's going to work through the slide deck that you have linked to your board agenda and also share with you some additional information about our process and then answer any questions that you might have about how this works. And so I'm going to welcome Chad for just 1 second, and Chad invites you to the podium if you don't mind. Again, we're glad to have Chad. I don't think there are any prepared remarks for Chad, so he likely won't get a standing ovation to start with today.
We
but
don't
we're
have any-
Okay to remove this one?
That, please.
very good. And Chad, Matthew McMurray behind you's got the slide deck, so he'll work through the slides for you as you go. Okay.
Excellent. Well, Mr. Craven, board members, thank you all for having me here today. And I feel honored to hear all the comments that you made. And congrats to all of you with all the service that you've done. I've got a kindergarten daughter who's navigating the, half in person, half online. So I really respect what you guys have done to make these decisions. I know it hasn't been easy. So congrats to all of you. And thank you for the introduction, Dr. Bryant. As he said, I'm excited to be here. We've had a lot of great conversations over the last several months. And really the reason that I'm here is to talk about some of the ways that we've helped other government entities across the state of North Carolina reduce the total age of their fleet without making any major impacts to their current budget. So we currently partner with just over 50 government entities across the state, and that ranges from municipalities such as the city of Hendersonville, counties such as Stokes and Graham, and other school systems such as Jackson County Public Schools and Cleveland County Schools in order to achieve that goal. And what we typically see with the government side of things is there is a pretty, historical way of doing things. And you guys buy vehicles at a very low rate today, but typically where we see you need some help is on the when do we cycle them? When is the best time to get rid of a vehicle? Are we doing the best that we can to keep safe vehicles in the fleet? And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Enterprise Fleet Management is a sister company to Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And between all of our different business lines, we have 1.9 million vehicles underneath our management, making us the largest owner and operator of fleet in the United States. And essentially the reason why government entities like yourself and other businesses would partner with us is because we essentially take our experience from running that large of a fleet and essentially take the strategies, the infrastructure, and the idealisms that have allowed us to successfully run a fleet of that size, and we apply them to your fleet to help you lower the age, lower the total cost, and create a more sustainable fleet budget moving forward. That way you're keeping healthier vehicles in that are safer for your employees to drive and they look better for the school system. One of the main goals that we have as a partnership with any government entity is identifying the optimal time to cycle a vehicle. And after, as Dr. Bryant said, we've had some extensive conversations over the last several months, and it seems, if you'll put one more slide here, here is the current standing of the fleet today. There's about 76 vehicles in the Henderson County Schools fleet, 73% of which are over the age of 10 years old. You're averaging about 1.4 acquisitions per year, which if you were to follow that current trend, it would take you 54 years to currently replace or refresh that fleet. So if you'll flip back to the previous slide, this is the model that we would want to help you guys implement, which is essentially identifying the right time to cycle these vehicles to implement a sustainable budget moving forward. And the optimal time that you'll see us to do that is before the vehicle has lost all of its value. There's still some value on the resale market for you to get equity gains from. You haven't invested heavily in big maintenance transactions such as engine replacements, transmissions, water pumps, things like that. And your fuel economy is still pretty good because the engine degradation has not set in. And again, with you guys, you're kind of farther out to that 10, 12, 15-year mark. And we would like to use the data, not only from your current fleet, but from all of our other government clients as well, to help make recommendations that'll make the fleet for Henderson County Schools safer and easier to work with. One more. The biggest two things that we would shift compared to what you guys are doing today is essentially the upfront, comparing a cash flow method that will allow you to get more vehicles into the fleet without having to spend a ton of extra capital in order to acquire those vehicles. And we pair that with the concept of proactive replacement. So instead of waiting 10, 12, 15 years until that vehicle may only be worth a few $100s on gov deals and getting what you can for it, we will put a full plan around this and make these recommendations that will allow you guys to get out of vehicles at the right time, capture equity on the back end that can then be reinvested into the fleet so that you have a sustainable budget. Your fleet is under warranty. You're not having any major repairs or anything like that. It's a pretty well-oiled fleet moving forward. So I know we've got some financial analysis there for the budget year here, but I'd like to pause there and answer any questions that you guys may have.
Yeah, let's dig into it a little bit more.
You can go back. I'm going to walk through that one. So what we've got here, the financial component on the front end is called an equity lease, otherwise known as an open-ended lease. So essentially what we have here is a $25,000 example. This is just for easy math. So if you have a $25,000 truck, today you guys are going and you're writing a check for that truck based on capital funds, and that truck will never be worth $25,000 again. As soon as you drive it off the lot, the depreciation will set in, and eventually you're selling that vehicle for minimal gains several years later. The way that enterprise looks at this is that same $25,000 vehicle, if you look 3 years later, say it's worth $12,000. Instead of financing it down to zero, and you can see there, if you were to do a traditional finance, you'd pay about $694 a month in principal. What we do is we look at the same vehicle. If it's worth 12 grand at the end of the term, we finance it to a conservative residual. In this example, $7,000. At the end of that term, Henderson County Schools has all the flexibility to make the decision that's best for them, whether it's cycling that vehicle at term and having enterprise sell that on your behalf. All the equity gains in this example, $5,000, if it were to sell for 12, would go back to the school system. You can extend that lease further on if you wanted to keep it in service, or you can turn it in early. With the open-ended equity lease, there are also no penalties associated with over mileage, wear and tear, anything that is normally tied to more of a closed-ended lease. So for the open-ended side of things, the big benefit you get is the ability to spread out your cash flow to acquire more vehicles, be able to have the flexibility to either cycle early, cycle on time, or extend out depending on the budget year and the economic scenario. It provides you with a lot of flexibility to be able to make the best decision when it comes to your fleet of vehicles.
I've been a dealer since 72, so I had some questions. I don't really understand. Tell me, I've done Ford and Chrysler, and I've never done an open-ended lease. Actually, I didn't think you were allowed to do those in North Carolina, but this, maybe the rules have changed. Tell me what the difference is between open-ended. I even called some other dealers, and they couldn't help me with an open-ended, so I couldn't get the information I was looking for about what an open-ended lease, how it differs from a closed-ended. Because what you were describing sounds like that's how a closed-ended works, but so tell me.
But that's a great question. I know most of the time when people hear the word lease, you think about closed-ended lease. Everyone that's, leased from dealership, the biggest difference between an open-ended lease and a closed-ended lease is an open-ended lease is nothing more than a flexible finance. The only difference from a finance to an open-ended lease is, and instead of financing down to zero and owning the vehicle when you're done with the term, is with an open-ended lease, you're financing to a residual. And in this case, and in every case, we conservatively do that so that you have equity built up on the back end.
But that's how a closed-end is work.
But a closed-ended lease, as you know, from the dealer side of things, when you go into a walk-away or a closed-ended lease, you are essentially, that vehicle is breaking even the last month of that lease term. And then
You don't know that, though.
The equity or inequity is on the finance institution and not the end user. If we were to do an equity lease in this scenario, regardless of whether that vehicle sold for more money than the residual or less, that would be Enterprise's problem. So you guys wouldn't have the beneficent of any equity on the back end or inequity. That's the biggest difference, is that equity belongs to the school system in this piece here, which you can see if it were to sell for that 12 grand, the first 7 goes to pay off the unpaid principal, and the additional 5 in between what that vehicle would sell for and what is the residual on it would go back to the school system. And I've got clients who would then roll that money into the next vehicle, further reducing the delivered price and the monthly payments moving forward. Or I have clients that leave that money in a section of the general fund that can be reappropriated on different times, whatever may be needed.
So I was looking through some of your examples, and a capitalized price of $32,000 for a 21 Chevy Silverado 2500. Is that cap price? Is that the same as cap cost?
So capital, that's just your delivered price. So essentially what that is, that's the way we price is manufacturer's invoice less the government incentive that you guys are entitled to, plus any aftermarket equipment. And I worked with Dr. Bryant and his team to find out what the best vehicles for the application were. These are upfitted with the same service bodies that the maintenance department has used today. So everything is kind of apples to apples in that scenario.
The cap price does include the upfit.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that was one question I had. And then I see the estimated value of 29,000. So you're buying this for 32 and then driving it for 3 years and then it's worth 29?
That's correct. And the reason for that, you guys are in a position, being a government entity, that very few other folks are in the position to do so. Because of things like the state contracts, sheriff's associations, all of the different bidding procurement avenues that you guys can go through, the government obviously buys vehicles at a lower rate than most other folks. So you're acquiring that vehicle for way less than what a normal construction company or whatever the case may be may buy that off the lot for. And by only driving it 5,000 to 10,000 miles a year, which is about your average today, that vehicle is going to be worth a lot of money at the end of the term, because a normal construction firm is driving anywhere between 15 and 40,000 miles a year. At the end of 3 and even 5 years, these vehicles are going to have only 25 to 50,000 miles on them, and you're going to be able to capitalize on the resale, which can then be reinvested back into the fleet to create that healthy, sustainable vehicle life cycle where you're constantly reinvesting that equity into the fleet to pay down the next vehicle.
So if the cap cost is 32, and let's say on a closed-ended lease, let's say the residual is whatever percent to give you $20,000. And then let's say the market value on the vehicle is 23,000. So in my mind, you could either give the car back to the dealer, and if the dealer agrees that it's 23,000, you would pocket $3,000. You could sell the car for whatever you wanted, and let's say you sold it for 23,000, you could pocket the 3,000. Or let's say it's worth 17, and your residual is 20. You can say, I don't want that thing anymore, and then you turn it in. So tell me how an open-ended is different based on those scenarios.
Open-ended is different because enterprise does not have access to the equity. Equity belongs to you all.
What if there's not equity?
If there's not equity, then if there's an inequitable situation, you have the ability to either extend another year until you're break even. That's not the case with these, though, because the government incentive and the way that we're structuring these leases, you guys are going to be break even within 12 months, if not out the door on these vehicles. But in the certain instance that you're mentioning, if there was inequity at the end, the school system would be responsible for that. But we also have the ability to continue to extend that lease out, being that you're only driving 5,000 to 10,000 miles a year. If you extend it one more year, you would be in a break-even position.
And I'm a huge fan of leasing, and a lot of people don't like this, but I leased for a long time. I got a company car, but do you have an option to go to a closed end?
You do, but there's a couple of reasons on why I wouldn't recommend it. And when we look at the viability of extending this out over a number of years, one of the things that helps fuel this being a sustainable cycle is being able to either roll gains into the next vehicle, or at least have that the resale money being able to be as part of the equipment fund or part of the general fund to be able to pull from. If you do a closed-ended lease, your flexibility goes away. If you turn the vehicle in early, there's penalties. If you drive the vehicle more miles than what we agree upon, there's an over mileage penalty. If the vehicle comes back more beat up than just general wear and tear, there's a penalty for that. With the open-ended lease, there are no penalties associated with it. If it comes back beat up or more mileage, it may not just sell for as much on the back end. That's your only obligation on the open-ended lease, is to satisfy the unpaid principal at any time. And being the fact that you can cycle this vehicle early if you need to, we can sell it for you on time, or you can extend it all the way down until you've paid it off, just like a normal finance. Gives you that flexibility to be able to make the decision as a board, whereas instead of maybe purchasing 2 used vehicles this year, we can get you 11 new ones with maintenance guaranteed for the life of the lease for the same cost that you would pay cash for 2 vehicles.
And I don't want to.
No, you.
Oh, well,
this is
go
your
right
ballpark.
ahead.
Go.
No, I mean, do you have the exacts? Like, for instance, what I would want to look at is, the MSRP, the cap cost, which I'm assuming that's cap price. I think the fees are included, but it does not include taxes.
You don't pay taxes anymore.
Okay, a money factor, a residual to see how that you, not you, enterprise, comes up with that. How I don't know how we would determine. I don't know how a value is determined at the end, because based on these numbers, yeah. I mean, my gosh.
That's what my question was how is the residual determined?
So the residual is determined at a depreciation percentage on the trucks at 1.35. So if you take that cap price and you times that by 0.135%.
Over 3 years?
Over 3 years, yes, sir. But again, you have the ability to extend. But if you multiply that out by the depreciation percentage, you get to that residual. The estimated resale numbers are through our system. We sell just over 1 million vehicles a year through all of our business lines. We have our finger on the pulse of the used market. Obviously, right now is historical wholesales due to COVID, but we're playing the long game. So we're making these recommendations based on what we can see in the market for now. But this isn't just a let's partner for this year. Here's your 11 vehicles. We will meet with you guys 3 to 4 times a year, making recommendations as new data comes in from maintenance and from fuel and other things that we gain. We use all of those data points to make recommendations to you all that will allow you to either A, reduce the age of the fleet at little impact to the budget, or B, reduce the total cost of ownership of the fleet. Those are the 2 goals.
What are all included in your maintenance costs?
So that full maintenance program essentially covers all preventative and unscheduled maintenance. The only thing that it does not include is the quantifiable items of tires and brakes. Due to the low miles that you guys are doing each year, I don't think over a 3-year period you would probably even need a set of 10 bar.
Those first tires are pretty. They go pretty quick on those new cars. Do you handle any of the specialty vehicles? I see that you put an 8-inch or 8-foot service body on some of these Silverados. Are we talking about any specialty trucks as well?
Not specifically on this particular, and as Chad was mentioning, we were very specific about what our needs were. They're able to accommodate any of those specs, but we recognize, and I think this is true, correct me if I'm wrong, the greater we specialize that vehicle, the more difficult it is to then put it back out for a resale. So we're trying to make sure that our standard specs fit the needs, but that we don't get too specialized so that then it's a very specific user for a resale.
Fuel will still be handled by us at the central office or at the bus garage.
Yes, sir, at the shop.
So this is Enterprise actually carrying the lease for these vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
The question I have is, so
sure.
some of those cars, we have cameras in them now. Would you put cameras in these as well?
I believe they're all equipped with cameras now, if I understand it correctly.
Rear view cameras?
No cameras inside. Is if they're using with the student transportation. I'm assuming that's what the car.
Oh, those would be installed by us. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about rear view.
No, I just didn't know if that would be included in those prices.
And so based on your example here on this page, you're looking at $70,000, give or take, to replace 10, 11 vehicles. In, I guess, 2, 3 this year, 1 this year, the rest in 2021. But then my question is this, is that then all of a sudden we're going to be on the hook every single year for a minimum of $70,000 if we start down this path. And we scrolled earlier, we have 76 vehicles in the fleet that fit these criteria. So if you start multiplying that out, you start coming up with 7 times that number, which is $500,000 a year to maintain your fleet. Tell us why we would want to get to do that versus what we're doing now.
That's a great question. So in reviewing with Dr. Bryant and Mr. Sosha as well, of those 76, I believe after reviewing the age and the annual miles that your true fleet size should be less than that. I think there's a number of underutilized vehicles in the fleet today. And if you have more of a cycled approach, you wouldn't have the need for those vehicles. So I believe the true fleet size after all of our conversations is probably somewhere in between 50 and 60, depending on the types of vehicles that are needed. So moving forward, again, if we're going to be meeting 3 to 4 times a year, especially going through budget season, these are the type of discussions we're going to have. Which vehicle types make the most sense for your application? Which ones are spares? Which ones do and don't need to be in? But when we had our discussions with the maintenance team and some of the others, when they were saying these are the ones that we want to replace, there was about 20 that were older and higher mileage than the ones they wanted to replace, which leads me to believe that those vehicles are just sitting right now. So to me, there are vehicles that make sense to be involved in a cycle, and there's vehicles that don't.
Sure.
And we will work with you guys to decide which vehicles have a use of a couple hundred miles a year, but we have to have them, and which vehicles are driven every day that would benefit from being on a plan like this.
What manufacturers do you currently work with? Looks like Chevy, GM, I'm guessing.
We work with all major manufacturers, and essentially what we do and how we came up with this is running a total cost of ownership comparison. So we take into account things like delivered price, incentives, resale values, fuel economy, all the different items that come into total cost of ownership, and whichever one comes out to be the winner. Obviously, most of the major manufacturers play ball with government incentives and things like that. We do all the analytics on your behalf, present that to the team, and then obviously it's up to you on which vehicle manufacturer you go to, what term we do, how many per year. And it's an annually assessed program, which is why you only see 1 year up here today, because even if you only did this year, you've just replaced 5 times as many as you normally do. And if you just ran that out for the next 3 years, you would have a fleet that 17% of the fleet was replaced in this year, and you're in a much better position as you were last year. And then next year, as we meet and we look through the recommendations and you decide maybe we don't replace any vehicles or maybe we do, it's all up to you guys. But you have a consultant with a team, it's myself and a number of other individuals that will be dedicated to you guys to be able to make those recommendations, just looking after total cost of ownership.
Yeah,
If I could-
the difference is we've spent $210,000 over 3 years versus $70,000 in our 2021 budget. And as we all know here on this board, our budgets are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And I think for me to feel more comfortable with this is to dig in it a little bit deeper, look deeper into our fleet, see where we're at. If we are really have 20 something vehicles more than we really have, then I think that's the first thing that we need to look at. I'd like to also, no offense or anything, but I'd like to look at other competition to see what else is out there, to see what else that we can do. And my suggestion would be to table this for a further discussion down the road until we can get some more data on our fleet, being that this is the first time that it's before this board and we have a new board coming in. Do you have more questions on the actual lease itself?
Mr. Craven, could I clarify 2 things
Please.
before you take any other questions? One, specifically as it relates to an example of how this particular work can be refreshed by manufacturer. When we first began this work, Mr. Socia and I together, we, for example, had a whole series of Dodge trucks that were listed in there. But based on the timing of as we've gotten to this point, those incentives ran out, the opportunity to maximize those values. And so
Sure.
one of the things that Chad did, even through the practice process, is like, if you're going to do anything in 2021, those trucks are now not the best
So
option.
that's why
for
you
you.
threw Chevys in there? No?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And specific to the elements of the fleet that are not needed, I think I would clarify that as by saying those vehicles may not be needed as part of our fleet refresh. They are still needed for unique opportunities, but you wouldn't necessarily buy a new one because you need a newer one. You can have a 20-year-old truck that has a very specific purpose that is only used for 500 miles
Sure.
a year. And so I think when Chad's talking about fleet size and which ones are necessary to be used, I wouldn't want the board to think that that means we have 20 trucks that are sitting around doing nothing. We just don't necessarily need them maybe to be part of the most current elements of the fleet. So that target number would be a little smaller than the fleet itself.
No, I completely agree with that, and I get that point. I think that what this board needs to do, and especially with 3 new members coming on board, is be able to look at the whole picture and not a slice. And because we're making, it seems like a good deal, but the thing is as soon as you step into this lease, you're pretty much into this lease forever.
Well, and that
Because-
was what my question was, is I would really like to look at the fleet and what we're looking at, next year and the year after and 3 years from now and 6 years from now, just so that we can make an educated decision. Because like what you were saying, this is this year's $70,000 in capital, but what are we going to do next year and the year after, and how many are we going to be adding onto this? We need to have that kind of in our mind for budget time and what we're asking for. And
Do we usually spend 70 grand a year?
Absolutely. Do we?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and have long needed to spend more.
A lot
But
more,
what
yeah.
happens oftentimes is that is one of the first things that gets
Yep.
out. So your
Yeah.
fleet, much like many other things, ages and ages and ages because of other things become more important. And I think Mr. Craven is exactly right, and Ms. Holt is exactly right. We do need to understand that this is a larger picture. Again, your replacement needs, if we have this option, which is why we've pursued this, really takes care of the next several years' urgency. But if you are going to update the entire fleet and look at this from a holistic approach, that is a larger dollar figure moving forward. And it would be a considerable change from how we've worked. I can speak to, as I've shared with a number of others, having spoken to the contacts that were provided to you and the information as it relates to some local government agencies that they work with, as well as some regional agencies that they work with. The universal response to that has been highly recommending this as a fleet management service. But we are glad to do.
City of Hendersonville?
Yes, sir. That's
And-
correct.
And Laurel Park?
That's correct.
I do
Yes,
have
sir.
a question. When a lot of your folks get to the end of their term, 3 years, 5, whatever the equity, the lease is, how many sell it and then roll that into a new one? How many keep that vehicle or pay off the residual that's owed? What kind of percentages are there as far as what do they do with the vehicle once it's done with that 3-year term?
I would say it's a bigger split between either extending out and paying it off or having us cycle it at that time. Very few would elect to pay it off at that time because you can extend it out.
Sure,
And essentially
make your
spread the
payments
capital.
and yeah,
Exactly.
you can-
So, but yeah, it's a smaller percentage of people exercising a purchase option and more either having us cycle at that time or extend it out another year.
Okay.
And then one other thing I wanted to point out is I know you mentioned it'd be over 200 for the 3 years.
Yeah.
So if you look over at that far right, that's the estimated resale. So you're at $60,000+ on the back end. And you know, whether or not it makes sense to cycle that vehicle 3 years in with the type of aftermarket that's on those 3/4 tons, we would look at that time. But what you have to understand is that the way that this ends up working, if you do compound it, because I agree with you, if you replace vehicles next year and the next year, that lease payment will compound, but so does the resale value. So each year that you have vehicles coming in, you have resale going back into the fleet, which if you look right here, after 3 years, that covers one of your annual lease payments, just about, for what you have. And that is the biggest change, is that you're taking a look at the fleet and you're spending money toward replacing vehicles, which then in turn lowers your maintenance and fuel spend, which if you look at the pie graph of capital, maintenance, and fuel to what you guys are spending today, it leans very heavily toward operational, right? Maintenance and fuel. If you just shift that money to capital, it shrinks your operational expenses and it gives you a more well-oiled and safe fleet. And that's the goal of all this. But I would be more than happy to put together a more extended analysis that would show more years.
And I can just say, I do agree, Blair, you hold it off for the next board to look at it. But also I see the benefits from not having to go through the government thing to sell the vehicle, owning it yourself, because you're going through all that bureaucracy just to sell something and you're not going to get even what it's really worth.
No, I know a lot of those vehicles need to be replaced right now. That's why we have it in the budget, but it's one of those things, once you start, it's really hard to stop. And so once you get in bed, then you are committing a sizable chunk that's always going to increase, in my opinion. It's never going to decrease. And I know everything's going to increase, but those trucks are going to be more expensive next year than they were this year, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And so I would like to see more of an analysis on what our fleet looks like. I would like to see if there are other competitors out there that we could do some comparison shopping to. And then we can make a more informed decision in a month or two.
Well, since this was on for approval, if you
Yeah.
need a motion to table.
Do we need a motion to table it?
Why don't we just move it?
All right,
So I will so move.
Thank
Before
you.
we do that, though,
Second.
hold on, second, discussion.
yes. Well, I have another question.
Sure.
If I could. And I don't even know how this works. I feel embarrassed. But now, Enterprise gets vehicles from the manufacturer.
That's correct.
And you were talking about the pricing. Is that comparable to the state bid?
Correct.
Is the state bid lower? Is the enterprise price lower than the state bid? Are they the same?
It's vehicle to vehicle. We could be we're going to be within a few $100 either way. We're going to be higher on a few, lower on others, but it's the government bid that we
It's
use.
very comparable to a state bid.
Correct.
What about is the average we spend on vehicles per year? I mean, 70,000 doesn't seem to me like that's any huge amount that we have. Do we
No,
normally?
ma'am. In my time, and Mr. Caldwell could speak to that a little bit better, but in the last 4.5 years, we've had anywhere between $35,000 and $70,000 in the budget annually for
That's
cap.
why we have all these vehicles that are so dang old.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. Because as Chad was mentioning, again, 2 at a time, 3 at a time for 60 vehicles. Right, I'll retire before we get to that point.
Absolutely.
But I understand,
yes,
we
ma'am.
might not use that tow truck.
Right,
Just,
right.
I mean, it's not gonna have hundreds, thousands of miles on it, so you don't need to buy a new tow truck.
But you also have some of those cars that transport students,
But-
and they also
right.
have the ones that are very, like, if you go to the one at IHS and the one at the annex, I wouldn't get into those cars.
No, I agree. We do need a
It's
few
got
more
to be
cars for our homeless liaisons, our foster liaisons, our social workers. We've added, quite a few more social workers,
And that's why you see on this particular sheet, again, I draw your attention
But
to the
some
top.
days-
We're talking about supporting student services, instruction, and that need not just our maintenance department, not just, our folks who are doing work in and at the schools. And so Dr. King, I know, would be the first one to say she's grateful that those cars are at the top of the list because they have long needed that same support.
And some of them are still, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, like, I know our homeless liaison is even still driving her own car to do some of this stuff because there isn't one available for her.
We
to
do have
drive.
some student services folks in their own cars. And traditionally, we have taken the hand-me-down car in student services. And I was pretty excited to see this on there. Just because of transporting students. We want to make sure they're in safe and reliable and clean and nice accommodations to transport them.
insurance costs, I'm assuming would go up with these.
Are you guys who's your insurance provider today? Just because of the
Substantially,
need-
right? Because, they're newer vehicles, the replacement costs and,
When I checked with our insurance company on it, they did not feel that it would be a substantial increase. Just a few $1,000s a year was what they told me. Talk to them about this list of cars.
do you have any input on this?
Oh, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah. Right. Well, tell me why you're in favor of it.
I've wanted to get some fleet vehicles in here for kind of things we've been talking about, especially the top list of them for our departments, to have them in there so that they had reliable cars to knock our current expense costs down for our fuel, get better, more efficient vehicles in there. I would love it if we could expand it even further to have people driving a Raleigh in these personal vehicles. That's sort of down the road, if you will. But I like the ability for us to take the next 3 years of vehicles that we would have had on our capital list, to roll them all into this one time, knowing what we are getting upfront.
Yeah.
And not every year worrying about it. And what I like about this type of lease, what really kind of got me excited, was one, the contract pricing. Tips are Sourcewell contracting that they're able to access, which we are as well, but that we have the option at 3 years or even before that to evaluate it. If we get in this and we don't like it, sell them early, get as much equity as we can, and go back to the way we've been doing it.
Or keep them.
But if we love it, then we have that $70,000, $68,000 at the end of this 3 year period to then make that decision of what makes the most sense forward.
Okay. Mr. Wood?
I would like to, I'm curious to know how much we would possibly save if we can get in more energy efficient vehicles. I think that would be a definite advantage if we can do that. I'd like to see us look at more energy efficient vehicles.
What are you saying, a truck, 2,500 is not?
With an 8-foot turbo body on
Yeah,
it?
come on.
Yeah, 4x4. Thank you very much. We have a first and a second. Mr. Egolf, this is to table this motion for later? Yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Holt,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Ms. Case,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming
I
today. We
appreciate
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Corn was the motion and Michael was the second. Okay. Now let me get back to where I was here. Next up,
Initial budget.
initial budget, Mr. Bernie Sosha, if you'd like to come up here.
All right, shifting gears here.
Yeah, well, more money,
Lots more money.
lots more money.
Well, here it is, November. It's time for the July budget, isn't it? Isn't that where we are?
Hope you got your crystal ball today.
I have to admit, I did not predict a pandemic in the budget.
Exactly. Where were you?
I missed that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get back to this list of papers here. So what we have is the initial budget, which is very similar to our preliminary budget that we talked about earlier in the year. But now we have all the different funds included in there for $137 million, $395,620 for the fiscal year. That is where we stand right now. Sometimes a little bit shifts from year to year depending on when we approve the budget because of what we know at the time. But this is where we are with all of our state allotments right now, with the federal budgets that have been approved through DPI, which include the CARES money that we've received, and then as well as we have updated through the enterprise funds through the first quarter of operations to try and project how we're going to move through this year. The documents that are there for supporting documents besides the actual resolution itself are some comparisons for you that show, if you want to move into the, I think that go ahead and get through the resolution part and get to the chart with that. Okay, that one works too. Yeah, this is a comparison for you to see sort of the breakdown of the budget as well as where it has changed from last year. The first part just showing you the funding sources that we have, $86 million from the state, 31 million local current, and the Fund A other restricted funds. I'm giving you that in comparison to the prior year. The two little graphs at the bottom giving you the breakdown. They look very similar to what those charts have looked like in the past. We are salaries and benefits, almost 84% salaries and benefits. That's how we operate around here.
That's how we roll.
We're a people business.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
And
And to follow it up on the bottom side, what kind of people do we have? 75% instructional services. You know, that is certainly what you would expect to see. We're a school system. We put all of our most of our money into the instructional services, 15% into system-wide support, and then the little bit in there for the capital outlay, the enterprise funds, and then our state debt service that we have on our buses. But that's just sort of a comparison for you to see what the breakdown looks like. If you go to the chart right before that one, a different way to look at the budget. Because I know there's all different ways people want to see this. This is programmatic funding. I know there's a lot of information here, but this breaks down each area. Like just for example, if we start off with classroom teachers, and I'm showing you the different funding sources along the way as to where we get it. We got state, other restricted, and local, federal, capital, enterprise funds, where the money comes from into the different categories of our operations. And the category on the left is just showing how we classify them with our budget codes. I know there's a lot of different things in there, and they are ranked by percentage of total budget on the right-hand side. Mr. Would you point out about the federal money there? I think
coronavirus relief funds.
Yeah, right there, kind of in the middle, the one that has all sorts of programs listed on the left, all those different numbers. Those are the $700,000. That's the state, the CRF, the coronavirus relief funds that we have received to this point. And then the couple columns over in the federal, that is the CARES money that we have. The CARES money does not have to all be spent this year, but we have received it in this fiscal year. So it is all in our budget now. It's what's been approved at Raleigh. The coronavirus relief funds, many of them or most of them have a December 30 expiration date. Not even the 31st. They cut us off a day earlier even, but December 30 cutoff.
For 2020?
Yeah, like next month. Yep.
How much of that do you know off the top of your head is it getting ready to expire?
Oh, of the 700, most of the 700 is getting ready to expire.
Okay.
And there's 300,000 that we just received.
Okay. Because just thinking just ahead for if, additional summer school that's needed, that's not going to be finished by June 30th. I mean, I'm talking beyond the
Right. And
December
we're hoping that
30th.
some of the CARES money will be able to come in on the backside of all of this. So we're constantly shifting these budgets around as the state updates us with what we're allowed, because a lot of it's very restrictive, especially the state monies. So we are putting everything that we can that's eligible into those and pushing out anything like from the CARES money, especially because that's kind of that's the big help that we have in all of this, to fill in all the gaps as things come up. This very unpredictable time, not knowing where we are going to move forward.
Right. Yeah, because I'm thinking that we're probably going to have to do a lot of over the summer instruction to get kids caught up, hopefully.
Sure.
Hopefully we don't, but
Well, as far as the CARES Act, and I would have to say for this tremendous leadership over here to my left with Dr. King and Dr. Bryant, they meet every week about this. They go through the budgets of CARES and trying to decide what they can do. They're very smart to make sure that they're putting some back. You notice that we're going to spend what goes first, and then we're going to hold and want to make sure where's the cliff in this. I mean, what are we, when's this going to end and where we need money? So I don't know if either one of them would like to talk about their weekly meetings and their budgets with this, but I'll pop in and they're going over every dollar and making sure they know exactly where to spend this money. So.
Why are you moving $700,000 from fund balance into child nutrition?
Okay, well, from the fund balance side, that's 650, but it is
650. Sorry,
No, it says 7 on there because we have to. There's actually a transfer from the state. We're required to transfer some state dollars to pay for child nutrition, so that's why it's on the same line.
Okay.
But it is 650, and that's and we'll talk about this in a couple minutes again when we do the financials. That is sort of the direction that program is headed for the year. The reason we didn't end up in the same boat last year in child nutrition when we were doing all the summer feeding, the wide open free meals, was because we got a huge drop of $680,000
from USDA,
and that's what bailed us out last year. And this year we don't have that.
But that ends December 31st of this year, as far as we know, right? And so we're going to continue on the assumption that we're going to feed every kid based on this budget for the 2020-2021 budget year.
That is what this is built on, is where they are. Their October revenues, which aren't in the financial report yet because that only goes through September, they are actually on the plus side for the month of October.
What's their fund balance?
Over $2 million.
But we're taking 650.
We're looking to take 650.
But is that coming back eventually? Is that going to come from a reimbursement at all?
I mean,
no. This
not
is
now.
They're in a situation of the reimbursement amount per meal isn't the normal proportion that it would typically be. They like to have 40% of our reimbursement being salaries, and we're pushing double that amount right now because of the way we're operating. The costs to package everything is certainly
it is so much more manpower required to do what we're doing without coming in and reducing everybody in the staffing side. So that is why we're not getting enough reimbursement to cover the cost of the operations right now. But as we're bringing more students back into the building, we're getting more meals served, which helps. That's what we need. We need to have more meals served. But to continue the operations, it's the $650,000.
Section 7, school-based support services, up 600,000 year over year. What is that? It's code 5800.
And to see, we're in the
Section, yeah.
in the
And I said again, Blair?
Where are you
It's
at?
I'm on page I don't know
5?
what page it is. Section
Page 5.
7.
it's the federal.
It's in the federal instructional services, and we're
You're
gonna
back up.
So I'm kind of bouncing around here.
You said section 7.
Section 7 under instructional services, number 5800, school-based support
Gotcha.
services, up 600,000 year over year, and then also it looks like we're getting about 3 million to 6 more in federal sources.
That's the CARES.
That's the CARES.
That's the CARES money. That's why all of these are increased. That's all the CARES money going into that.
And you're dumping it, basically all those Fed dollars into the support services and into the instructional services.
Yeah. Sir.
And operational support and technology.
Yeah, there's a lot of need for technology in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
What keeps you up about this budget? Took a big gulp right there.
Sections 1 through 12.
I know it's a bit of a loaded question. It's a bit of a loaded question. I know that we're not looking to do too much more in our local current expense because clearly those dollars kind of shrunk last year. Well, capital wise they shrunk, but we need to be cognizant of that fact. But what else is keeping you up that we really need to be cognizant of in this budget?
Well, we just talked about the child nutrition
Yeah.
component that holds true for the child care. The fewer kids that we have in the building is a real strain on both of those programs just because of the way they operate. It's not a programmatic problem, I say, but just the kids aren't there yet. And that's where we are. And that's where we're in right now. The fact that they have the fund balances to get them through the year, as long as we get through all of this, then I'm not going to stay up at night. But
Well, I know we're jumping ahead a little bit. Childcare fund balance is going to be gone after this year, after 2021.
they should have enough to get us through this year.
I know we're jumping ahead, but they're already down $175,000. You extrapolate that over 12, that was over 4 months. You multiply that by 3, that's 225,000.
Well, they're down.
Fund balance is 230 grand.
Yeah, they should still have 75,000 or so at the end of this year.
But regardless,
Yeah.
then the quarter after that, it'll be gone.
Well, and I don't know. That's like you said, if we come through, like every bit of this is unknown. And what do you say? Well, we're just not going to feed the kids anymore. If you're not in school, you're not eating. We can't do that. Like, we don't have a choice about any of this. It's not like you're coming to us saying, well, we can wait on that asphalt that we planned at East or what. Every bit of this is you're talking about kids' lives.
As far as this budget goes, and let's say that we do get some more money after the first of the year, are you going to be able to appropriate more money towards child nutrition to keep that fund balance under control?
Yeah, if they give us any additional
Any
COVID
additional
dollars
money.
come in, if
it has to go there.
drops money into child care, that would certainly, that would be the key there. If they come back because they want to extend the feeding program through, and then the USDA says, yep, and we're going to throw, like we did last year, we're going to put more dollars out there, that would be huge. We actually might even need to use some of the other COVID dollars that we have for our PPE, for instance, that expires next month, we're going to look and see maybe there's some dollars within the program there that we can push some, give them a little bit of relief in there from those dollars.
Let me ask our new superintendent next year. It's a big question. Taking $650,000 out of fund balance for child nutrition is a big number, and we all have sat here and said that the most important thing is making sure that those kids are fed, because there's no way that they can learn if they're not fed. How long are you willing to keep up that feeding everyone from 2 to 18 program up? What are your thoughts on it?
I think I would echo what you heard Ms. Holt just say, which is right now we've made a commitment to ensuring that we care for every child under our care in any way we can for as long as possible. But to Mr. Socha's point, we have to understand what that future looks like, that we have received dollars from state and federal government that help to offset that, right? And what we will know is every month we know a little bit more about how that changes. To Mr. Socha's point, our child nutrition operations are to the good in the October month, right? We're not seeing kind of that particular piece, but we also know we have shortened months coming up. We know we have spring break. We know we have changes, and it is driven by how many people choose to take advantage of that service. I think what we have to do is be having as regular a conversation as we're having now about what direction that's going, because right now, since March, we have made a commitment to say we will feed everyone that needs to be fed, and the USDA has allowed us to do that. And I think we have an obligation to make sure that food scarcity and child hunger is not the thing that interferes with your education.
Okay. I'm good with it.
Remember the county commissioner said they would be willing to help with anything as possible. So if you have to go to them to ask for food, go to them, and that's good.
We've got a decent fund balance in there. I think the bigger, and we're going to get to this in a minute. The bigger concern for me is childcare.
Sure.
Because subsidizing on a local level childcare for a few, to me, doesn't make sense. Subsidizing food for kids, do it all day long.
And he
we'll cross that
hasn't
bridge in a
had
minute.
to make dramatic changes to the program to get to this point. I mean, he's kind of we're into the red for the first quarter, but things are improving. If down the road we needed to look at the program and evaluate how we were spending our dollars, we could, but continue to feed as best we can.
So are we having to package that up for every kid, even in the building and out, because of the way that
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
it is right now? That's what I thought.
Package and sending meals home in the afternoon as well.
Yes, I knew we were doing that for sure.
Right.
Okay. Right.
All right, I'll take a motion.
Before you get one other quick point, go to capital. I just want to remind this board, Bernie, on that section, what number is the number 4-3?
Page 7, capital outlay.
Capital's right at the very end.
Yeah. I just want to point out, if you look at capital and look at the increase, you remember you still have $400,000 in that capital, and we set it aside during the budget season that we didn't know what was going to come down the pike. I just wanted to point that out. That's still there. I made the commitment to you that it would not be spent without your being aware. Dr. Bryant will still continue that if that money's needed, and what we'll spend that local $400,000 for, because we set aside for COVID reasons. So I just want to point. It's
No,
not
it's
earmarked.
still
Not
just
earmarked
sitting
for
there.
anything.
It's just in there as COVID. So I just want to make sure to point that out, that you still have
Yeah,
it.
it's the line, the 9,000 line on section 11. If you're looking at it in there, capital outlay,
On page
part of
9.
that 1.4 million.
So if we needed to in the future move that, what we do, just like reach out to the commissioners and just let them know in advance, say
Sure.
we're gonna,
We would have to request of the commissioners to change that appropriation from capital to
Current expense.
expense.
okay.
Okay with it.
Yes. I'll be very
Sure.
disappointed. I'd be very disappointed if they would. Now, I mean, in my talk with Steve White,
Was the
that's-
reason that we did it that way.
Right.
Right.
And it's not,
So many
it's,
unknowns. They agreed that we could.
it's not,
It's
and it's
crazy.
not a continuation inside of the the budget. It's a one-time $400,000 outlay that we chose not to appropriate towards a roof or whatever at this point in time.
Exactly.
All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? I'll take a motion.
I move that the Henderson County Board of Public Education approve the initial budget resolution for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021.
Have a second.
Second.
Mr. Egoff,
Yes.
Mr. Absher,
Yes.
Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Ms. Case,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Initial budget passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, next. Oh, I just clicked my page off, so give me a second. Next up, equity focus updates. Dr. Jan King.
Thank you. We appreciate the board's commitment to the continuing conversation around equity. And I wanted to update you on some strides that our teachers and our administrators are taking. At the beginning of year professional development, we had encouraged our teachers who helped lead other teachers to include an equity lens. For example, asking fellow math teachers to make sure that when they construct a word problem, that the names and the stores and the products in the word problem represent the students in our class, the neighborhoods in our class. Also in the materials we select to read, what text do we choose to read? And so I'm excited to tell you about an opportunity that 3 of our teachers are going to have in partnership with RISA and the National Paideia Center. We're just lucky that the National Paideia Center is in Asheville. Paideia is a style of teaching that promotes dialogue and discussion. And if you'll indulge me for just a minute, I'm going to read you about the professional development that is outside of the school day. It is over and above their teaching job that 3 of our teachers are taking on by choice. It is intense, and they've committed to help train other teachers. The professional development is called Dialogues on Racial Justice. And it says, one of the most important challenges we face right now in American culture is the deep and systemic problem of racism. At the National Paideia Center, we believe that genuine dialogue is an antidote to racism. Our teachers will be involved in both live and asynchronous professional development, looking at the writings of Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston and John Lewis, and deeply involved in looking at their own beliefs, but then also talking about text selection and the importance of text selection in ELA or English Language Arts classrooms. That's coming up, and it begins next month and will go into the 2021 calendar. Additionally, we have been fortunate to work in partnership with RISA on a grant. Ms. Holt, last month you heard Ms. Holt, Dr. Bryant had attended the Racial Equity Institute. They gave up a weekend to attend that very intense professional development. Ms. Stipe from our Education Foundation has also attended that. We are going to be able to identify many administrators. That's the first target audience for the Racial Equity Institute, the 3-hour piece called the Groundwater Presentation, which we hear is a real look in the mirror. Is that the right way to maybe put it? I guess you guys who have been through it. And so that's coming up beginning in December. So I just wanted to provide you with that update and give a shout out to 3 teachers who are going to go above and beyond the call of duty. Megan Pridmore from Bruce Drysdale Elementary School, Lori Beck-Peterson from Hendersonville Middle School, and Kendra Henry from the Innovative High School, who are not only attending the professional development, but have committed to training other teachers.
Awesome. I love hearing that. Great. Questions for Dr. King? Thank you, Dr. King. Class size affidavit, Mr. Caldwell.
Yes, sir. For years, I have been bringing to this to tell you that I'm signing the affidavit and everything is good.
Sweet.
Now, of course, this last time I am not. So right now I'm telling you, we're getting ready to break the law, and I'm going to have to refer to Mr. Campbell. Here's where we are. This affidavit, right at the last minute, right at the last minute, I got to get Chris Campbell. Let me tell you where we are with this. The K through 3 class size up to 21. We have done a tremendous job with the guidance of Mr. Rose to making sure that's always been met. The last couple of weeks, we've had some students move into kindergarten at Bruce Drysdale. Right now, we are over the cap size at Bruce Drysdale. We have that position posted. We need to hire a position. This is not COVID related. It's not because of virtual or anything else. It's just we have more students in kindergarten with 2 teachers, because you remember there are 4 teachers in kindergarten, two dual. These are 2 in the regular that students moved in. The position has been posted. Right now, we are in this crunch that he needs to hire somebody. We need to get them in the system before November the 30th, when this affidavit is due. Right now, we've talked about it. He's interviewing. So I've talked to Mr. Campbell on what are our options. Right now, it's really not a waiver process I don't see, but I've put some information at his desk, and I'm going to let him kind of take it over as far as guidance on what we need to do as of November the 30th.
Right. I think Mr. Caldwell has summed it up. We just need to hire prior to November the 30th. It's a temporal issue. I mean, normally we would meet class size reduction. If we lost a teacher, we would have a substitute in that room until such time as we made a final hire. So it's the influx of the additional students that have created this. The waiver application is for things like you can't organizationally make a change. You've had some act of God or something of that nature. It's not for hiring decisions and the need to fill a position. So we've talked about it. The absolute worst case scenario would be he would go ahead and sign the affidavit with a good old asterisk, and the asterisk would be an attached letter saying that we're in the middle of the hiring process. But my recommendation is exactly what Mr. Caldwell has said, is that he wait until the last minute to file the affidavit and hopefully make the hire prior to filing the affidavit.
And I don't know the exact
Not
numbers,
concerned about it. It's under control.
but you got to remember there are not, Mr. Rhodes, is there 22 per class? Is that correct? On numbers in the books at Bruce Drysdale, is it 20? There's 22, but there are not 22 students in that classroom. You've got to remember some students are virtual, but they're still on your roll. Does that make sense? So if you walk in there, you're not going to count 22. And I can't remember the number. Dr. King, help me out. Were there about 8 kindergarten virtual? Do you remember? I'm putting you on the spot. I can't remember. But anyhow, what I'm saying is there are not 22 in there, but yet by Power School numbers, we need to hire to meet the law another teacher. We're working on it. It's just we want to get the right fit for a position out there, and we want to find the best teacher we can. So we're working hard, Mr. Campbell, to do that before November 30th. If not, if we can't find someone, then we'll certainly do a letter. I know what you're saying about a substitute. I hate hiring a substitute for a short period of time and then turn around and then give the children another teacher, because transition at this time is, like I said, there are not 22 kids in there because some are virtual. So therefore, I would prefer to go ahead and hire the person so these children will know their teacher at one time for a transition, if that makes sense.
So I'm sorry, Jay. I saw you were getting ready.
Hey, you were
first. So have we not been able to move those virtuals towards a district virtual?
We have, but they're still on
They're still count
they're
there.
still on the Bruce Drysdale roll. When parents were talked about moving to a virtual teacher, they liked it. But a lot of those parents did not want to lose their school identity. They still
Right.
wanted to be a Bruce Drysdale student. So they're still counted on the Bruce Drysdale roll.
Gotcha. Okay.
Blair, I have 2 questions. One, we're going to get this teacher in the bigger classrooms, or we're going to take kids out of each classroom to put in this new teacher's room. How are you going to do that?
Good question.
Facilities.
What?
Dr.
Dr.
Bryant's
going to answer. Well, what I can speak to as it relates to that is once we have a hire for that position, there are actually no empty classrooms at Bruce Drysdale in this case. We would be using flex space in any space, or we would have a third teacher who served both classrooms and separate the roles.
What?
Okay. But it's coming out of those overloaded classrooms, right? That's who we're helping. We're not helping
who
the
the
small
students are
classrooms.
assigned to. So 3 teachers can work in 2 classroom
gotcha.
spaces across all those students.
Right.
How many kids do we have attending every day at Bruce Drysdale in the non-dual language?
I believe we're going to look that up for you right now.
You said you had 8. I think 8 are.
I know that's just my old COVID brain working. There might be more of that for sure. I was remember when we started talking about at what schools, when we'll get to return to learn, but what schools can collapse a class and put all virtual and what schools couldn't. And I know with only 2 teachers, with only a small number of students on virtual, you couldn't collapse a class.
Yeah.
So those kindergartens,
It's twice as hard at Bruce Drysdale because we're essentially running two programs
Sure.
for
Yeah.
that school. So you have the dual language track, you have the traditional track, you have virtual, you have, I mean, there's really 4 schools within each grade.
those kindergartners, I think, and Dr. Key's looked it up, she can tell you where the virtual students went in that kindergarten.
There are 16 remote students in kindergarten at Bruce Drysdale.
16.
16 of 88. And this,
88, that's total or that's,
Of all 4.
And those
okay.
are counted as in class.
Yes.
Yeah, there are
yes.
I
kids.
mean, is there any talk of that law changing?
No.
You know how hard they took so much time to implement that thing?
No.
Mr. Egoff, and I can tell you, we really tried with that as a group of superintendents to let them give us some flexibility with the K through 3 class size, especially also on the virtual end. I mean, right now the issue is you're right. You go out to Bruce Drysdale and they're not breaking the numbers when you see them in person. It's just the kids that are on the roll. We have the same thing. You go back and think about it, Mr. Egoff, like at one of our elementary schools, we'll have 3 third grade classes, and all of them have 20 kids in it. Well, we get ready but they have 24 virtual kids within that group. Well, how great it is to put 18 with teacher 1, 18 with teacher 2, and put 24 with teacher 3 as the virtual teacher and full-time virtual teacher. However, we can't put that in Power School because now we're breaking the K through 3 class size law. So there are a lot of things to this that just really kind of bind us. But right now, sir, we have no flexibility.
Well, I would also say, that we are comfortable with, I personally believe, I know we all do as well, that we have some great teachers now. And in my mind, I know the law is different, but they're not overflowing in the classroom, and it's not hurting education for these kids. I just don't want to be in a hurry, and I know you have to do what you have to do for the law. Let's just not rush out and hire anybody to fill a law.
And thank you for that, Mr. Egoff. And that's what I'm bringing this to your attention, because most superintendents are signing it. They're not talking to their board. It's my intention that if we can't find that right person, we're going to do a letter with an asterisk and get approval from Mr. Campbell to send that on, saying we're trying to find a position, and it has been posted. So they
We
can
still need the right person.
I don't know where it says I always defend them, but I trust that they're not just going to go out there and hire some bloke so we can stick them when the.
I said that as a good thing.
Oh, you did?
Yes, it was not a bad thing. It was a good thing. You have their back.
But here's the kicker too, Jay. You can put 900 kids in one 4th grade class if you
Oh,
want
yeah.
to. Just not
Well,
kindergarten
let
through
me
3rd.
ask this, almost as an aside to that, in dual language, they have an exception, correct?
correct.
So how does that factor into this situation?
This does not factor in
It
this
doesn't.
because we're looking at the regular. These are 22 in both regular kindergarten classes.
Okay.
And I think if you're
They're
right,
not
we can
doing
talk.
Don't say it.
I know.
Yeah.
I was not going to say it either. I
We
was
have-
thinking.
we
I
have-
know, I'm
listen,
thinking this.
I was like,
do
I
not
think
say
they're
it.
dual language
We,
too.
we have looked at. Let me tell you
Go on to
something.
the next one, right?
Yeah, but don't say
Okay.
As Ms. Cord said, trust your administrators. We have looked at all options. And therefore,
I didn't say anything,
No.
just,
I just said we've
We
looked at
can
all
just
options.
see the wheels.
yeah, well, they.
Mr. Chairman, I repeat, I am not concerned about it from a legal standpoint.
You, sir.
I advise the board to move on.
Thank you,
Mr. Caldwell
sir.
has it under control.
All right, next we're gonna have, any other questions on this thing? Ms. Case, you good? She left? Okay. Next is gonna be a return to athletics update. I'm excited to hear about this. Athletics is getting fired up here right now. Yeah, I know.
So let me just say this, because I know that this board is one of the best group of people at asking questions that I've ever met. So with that being said, I have got built-in places for you to ask them. Halfway through it, after slide 22, and at the end. So if you can wait till I get to the
We don't
middle,
wait for no clicks
Mr.
around
Craig,
here.
we'll get through this
All right, let's go.
really quickly
22.
and efficiently.
33.
It is my pleasure, Chairman Kramer, members of the board, to be able to come to you today and talk about return to athletics in this update. So athletics and COVID-19, since June, what have we been doing? Well, we started off-season workouts with our high school students on June 22nd. That was step number 1. And then off-season workouts resume for our middle school student athletes on August 25th. Under the direction and guidance of our Pardee UNC Healthcare, our athletic training staff has implemented the daily COVID-19 screenings for coaches, athletes, and support personnel. And I want to just take a moment just to give a huge shout out to Doc Durham and his staff at Pardee UNC Healthcare for their continued commitment to the student athletes here in Henderson County. That partnership has been extraordinary, and we would not be where we are today without their help. Face coverings, again, those are required of all students, staff, and visitors anytime they're at a Henderson County Public School facility, and social distance requirements wherever possible. Athletic areas are also being cleaned and sanitized each day. We are practicing the 3 W's, even then when we're in our athletics. So right now, as of November 6th, how many positive cases have we had among our athletes? Currently, we've had in our high schools, we've had a total of 14 cases. I go back to June 22nd, and our middle schools have had 0. None of those cases have had to shut down any of our athletic teams at this time. Sports calendars. As you know, we have pushed athletics, started back here. We're starting late, starting in November. You're going to see as I go through this that we actually have what we are calling 7 different sports seasons this year. I'm going to go through those real quickly for you just so you have an idea. We are excited that we were able to start our volleyball and cross country on November 4th. Their first contest will be next Monday, and they will be playing 14 games. Season 2 will be swimming and diving. Start date November 23rd. Season 3, basketball season. Coach Wood's favorite season. Go Heels, mine as well. As far as that goes,
Love it.
Baseball. Don't forget, I love that a little bit more. But anyway, December 7th will be our basketball season, and then men's soccer will be starting on January the 11th. Our season 5 will be our football. It's going to be very cold for the start of football this year. Those football teams will experience what baseball has been experiencing for years, Mr. Craven,
Right.
where we've been out hitting baseballs and our hands feel like they were about to fall off every time we made contact. Season 6, golf for men and women, tennis and soccer, and women's softball will be starting on March 1st. And then our last sports season will be baseball, tennis, track and field, and wrestling, and that will begin April 12th. Wrestling, yes.
Is that for middle and high?
Yes. Our middle schools will be following the same schedule as the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. That's a good question.
Awesome.
Can I ask questions before you dig into the next part?
Well, you are the board chairman, so you can ask any question that you would like.
COVID screenings, that's just temperature checks?
Yes, so we go through those same screens. When they come in each day, they get their temperature checked. They are to answer those same questions.
That's not a test.
No.
They're not taking tests.
No, correct.
And we have a lot of overlap in these seasons this year, right?
Correct.
And so one thing I'm concerned about are the coaches, because coaches coach various different sports, especially at the middle school level. Do we have enough coaches?
We do.
Okay.
That's not been brought to us as a concern. One of the things that I would say to the board is that our coaches recognize that we are going to have to work very closely and have great communication about sharing of our athletes. And let me just go ahead and say this, because we've been meeting with our athletic directors. We've met twice in the last 2 weeks. We've been meeting regularly, and they understand the expectation, and they have communicated this to our coaches as well, is that our purpose this year, our purpose is to ensure that our student athletes have an opportunity to play. And we are going to have to be flexible in anything where it comes to scheduling games, because there's going to be a shortage of officials, and we may usually play on a Tuesday, Friday. It may mean we play on a Monday, Thursday. That's okay, because our purpose is we've got seniors that will never have the opportunity again to experience high school athletics. And we will do everything we can to make sure that they understand that priority is to get them back on the fields, back on the courts, and whatever we need to do, we're going to make sure we work with them to give them those opportunities.
Our coach is going to be flexible for multi-sport athletes.
Without a doubt.
Good.
Fan participation. Now, let me back up real quick before I get into this right here, okay? Fan participation. This is not our rules. This is not the rules from Mr. Caldwell, Dr. Bryant, myself, Dr. King,
We'll still get the emails.
maybe Bernie. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Please email the
But
chair
this
about
comes
this.
from
Thank you. They
This
will.
comes from the state. Right now, any sporting events that we have outside we are able to have 100 participants. Right now, currently, the way we're going to be starting out is that it's going to be home fans only, and I'll get into that in just a little bit more. Currently, inside sporting events, volleyball season is here. We are going to be able to have 25 fans in attendance. That's paying customers coming in the door to be able to participate at one of our home events. 25. Note, players, coaches, workers, entertainers, and support staff do not count toward the capacity limits. And again, these limits are subject to change. I believe the governor is getting ready to make an announcement here in just a few days. This could change. But currently, based off of those capacity numbers, we will be able to have 25 paying customers come into an athletic event. Entertainers, that's cheerleaders. The cheerleaders will not, if we're in basketball season, it's the same numbers, bless you, then we will not, those will not count against our numbers.
Okay.
Workers, those are folks who are scorekeepers, anyone that's going to be calling the lines in a volleyball match, etc. Ticket distribution. We're really excited about our high schools, and I want to again give a lot of credit to our high school athletic directors. Tickets will be distributed equally between student athletes, and we're going to be using a touchless ticket program. I think the name of that is called GoFan. Spectators will purchase tickets electronically, and when they come into the event, all they will do is use their cell phone to be able to show that they have purchased a ticket, and we won't have anyone taking and passing money back and forth. When people come into our gyms, they will have their temperature taken, making sure that they go in and they will go into the gym.
You only sell like 100
For outside,
for outside?
25
For
inside. Yes, sir.
And then once the tickets are gone, they're gone.
Yeah, so we're going to distribute those equally among our student athletes. And so,
But how do you get their parents? Their parents then have to go online to the ticket site to actually purchase
Sure.
the tickets.
Mhm.
What happens if they don't?
they don't purchase the ticket, they don't get in.
Right, but do we get to give that to somebody else, or how is that?
Yeah, so the way we've talked about it with our athletic directors, if I'm the student athlete, it's my choice who I want to be able to offer that opportunity to buy that ticket.
Okay.
So I may choose it to be one of my parents, both of my parents. It could be that my parents both work and I want it to be one of my classmates who's my best friend and wants to come to. We're going to let the athlete choose who they want to be able to come into
We're
attendance.
gonna get emails.
But
My
I still
ex
like it.
shouldn't be able to, my ex's
Uh,
wife shouldn't be able to come.
Well, it was
Yeah,
on
it can get ugly.
So our
Now
middle
the chair.
schools are going to be doing the same thing, except the ticket program, they won't be using GoFan.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Our student athletes are going to pre-sell tickets to the patrons, and they will show those tickets at the door. They will drop them off. Again, there won't be any touching back and forth, and they will be able to use those to be able to get into the ball games. The district and school communication, I want to give a big shout out to Molly McGowan, Gorsuch here. She is wonderful in helping us as we have been planning on what this is going to look like. Because one of the big things that we've got to do is communicate. Because we don't want people showing up knowing that we can only allow 25 people into an athletic contest and people be upset because we have failed to communicate. So we're going to be putting information on Facebook, on Twitter, print media, school websites, Swift K-12, parent meetings. We're going to be doing all of those things to make sure that we communicate. And starting this Thursday, we're going to be doing a media blitz to get this information out that we're talking to you about this evening.
So if you have someone that does, say for instance, you have 30 tickets left at the night before, are you going to still be able to allow people to buy them the day, the day of?
Again, I think it'll go back to that student athlete who's been given a certain number of tickets for them to be able to distribute. And if they haven't, then our hopes would be, if I've not used mine, I would offer them back to someone on the team so that they could use them. Yes. So
This
one of the
right
things
here is
we're
the best part.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about
love
this.
it.
So the live streaming, we recognize that our parents deserve the opportunity, whether they are there in person or whether it be a grandparent, a cousin, a family member, just someone in the community who wants to support athletics within our school system. We want to give them the opportunity to be able to see live sporting events. And even if they miss the live sporting event, to be able to watch it within the next few days by live streaming these events. So high school games will be streamed live through the National Federation of High School Sports Network using Pixelot camera systems. Now, let me remind you about the Pixelot camera systems. We started this process of getting them purchased and installed back in February. And we were very fortunate to come under the umbrella before the pandemic because we got these systems for free. Now, everyone I know in the back of your mind, you're saying free because nothing in the world is free. Well, you're kind of right. And at the same time, we have benefited from what would have cost us upwards to $20,000 to $25,000 for these cameras, 2 per school, 1 on the football field and 1 in the gymnasium. Those cost together $5,000 per school. We've got them for free. The installation we got for free. We're on a 3-year program where the National Federation High School Sports Network, they get all the proceeds from the revenue that they sell from the subscriptions. In year 4, we start a revenue sharing program. We get 10% of that revenue. Now, they weren't prepared for a pandemic. Neither were we. You know, we benefit because we did come under that opportunity where they were trying to get some business. And now that the pandemic hit, other school systems that didn't participate, they're paying $1,500 each to get them installed, and in some cases more.
And I just want to give a shout
Everybody
out
wants
to
them now.
Jay Egoff because he was the one that brought this up. It was just a thing. And I mean, thank goodness. Yes. We owe you lots of kudos for that.
That and the leasing.
Yes. Your time to shine. All right.
So we've got a
Let's
quick
watch
15-second video. You'll kind of see what the Pixel Lot systems do. There's not going to be a sound, but what you'll see is down at the bottom, it is hooked up into the scoreboard, so fans will be able to see the score.
So cool.
And this camera just automatically follows the students.
That was practice the other day.
That was practice.
It is so nice.
So no sound. Are they going to be doing the scrolling? Are we able to do the scrolling on the bottom of the screens or anything of that nature?
So let me talk to you just briefly about kind of where we're at as far as what possibilities revenue for our schools.
I know.
Schools do have an opportunity to get revenue by selling some ad content to the programming. Right now, we have the ability to get to, from what I've been told, my understanding is 3 different ads, 1 at the bottom that would kind of be like a ticker rolling, and we could put 1 on each side. We've not went down that road right now, and here's the reason why. Our focus and our goals right now have been about getting the systems installed, getting them running through our network, testing them to make sure they work by the 16th of November. And then at the same time, recognizing that going out and asking our community for sponsorships right now can be somewhat of a challenge. We want to make sure that we're being mindful of who we're asking for dollars right now as far as those ads and revenue, because we recognize some of our business who have been very charitable to us and have been great to support athletics in our county. We don't want to take advantage of them during the pandemic, but at the same time, we also got to do some homework on our end because we want to make sure ad packages are the same at all 4 of our high schools. So if we're going to ask for money, we want to be consistent about what those ad packages look like.
So when you pay $69.99 a year, or $10.99 a month, you have the whole NFHS network, so
Yes,
you can
sir.
go to any
Oh, that's
school
cool.
that you want, right?
Yes, sir.
Has there been any talk about possibly doing a system-wide advertising type of deal? So that I know that this year we're going to have some problems. I know you're getting to it about being able to pay referees because our gates are going to be way down. So we're going to have to supplement that either here or through ads somehow. Have you looked at doing just across Henderson County Public Schools, doing the ads and not specific, so that then we can divide that evenly amongst the schools, so we don't have anybody that makes money and another group that loses $20,000?
No, sir, we haven't. We haven't had those discussions.
Let's have them.
I know some companies that might be interested in
Me too.
advertising.
I think we could do some. I
Early
think
bird gets the
we're
worm.
underselling ourselves a little bit here. I think there's going to be a lot of
I
people will
think
be
so.
very happy to join in on this on the ground floor, especially during this year. There's going to be a ton of people watching.
Split out even.
They would love to have that. In the future, I think we can go more school specific, but I think if we're going to be losing so much revenue from our gates, it'd be really wise to try to make this thing as equitable as we can.
Okay.
I mean, this is, and just to echo, but this is a very giving community, and
It
there are a
is.
lot of companies that are doing still okay, and they would like to help their kids, help their students,
Or alma
help
mater,
people in the
whatever.
county.
But divided.
I like it divided this
For now.
year.
Dude,
You know, in a
I
normal
like that.
year, you can let whoever do
Right.
whatever at their school. But I think this year, and maybe, going into 2021, You do it as a school system. We have, these are our packages. And you put some pretty decent numbers on them, right? And we can give a story. You're going to be on every single game that Henderson County Public Schools puts out there. Volleyball, football, everything, soccer. Here you go. And then you've got 3 or 5 advertisers. That's it. And then split the money.
And this, go ahead.
I like that idea because having the opportunity for our student athletes to participate is so important, as is our educational needs. And as I'm sure Scott is getting to, we're going to have significant loss of revenue. So I like the idea.
Let's hit us with that revenue loss that we're about to
Yeah, before we've got to do that.
So how much does it cost to be able to have a subscription? It's $69.99 per year.
Thank you.
And then $10.99 per month.
And then $10.99?
No,
Or you can do a monthly pass for $10.99. You know, it's not enough that we have the ability to stream for our high schools, but we are working with our technology department, with our maintenance, working with Molly and getting some of her resources. We also want to be able to live stream for our middle schools. And currently we have we're looking at being able to do that through YouTube Live. So we're really excited about that opportunity. We hope to be able to have that up and ready by the 16th, but that's not a guarantee yet because we've got some things that we have to overcome to get those systems up and running. But we are going to be able to live stream our middle school athletics at no cost to our fans as well. That is the goal. Yeah.
I'm sorry, one thing I forgot to bring up. The Pixel-Lot pictures, what sound is with that?
So there will be sound that goes along with the system, okay? And I don't know how much sound.
Can it tie into whoever is like in football, either the play-by-play guy or the...
It has the ability to set up someone to be able to do a play-by-play. Yes, it does.
So we could tap into whoever's up in the booth at North, calling the game. There's your audio for
possibly
that Pixel-Lot game at North.
Yes.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have a lot of kinks to work out, but I think in the end it'll.
Well, I think from the experience that we've had so far, again, our athletic directors got a lot going on, and they've been doing an extremely good job at getting this set up. I think what we've got to do is learn the system. And I think, coming into this season, volleyball is going to be a great opportunity for us to learn, basketball as well. And as we get through this, there's endless possibilities of what we're going to be able to do with the Pixel-Lot systems. Yeah,
well, and I think in our climate too, we have a lot of people that are high risk, and even coming in temperature screenings and wearing masks, they're still not comfortable coming into that atmosphere.
Sure.
And we all know that a lot of the fans that come at 4 o'clock, 4:30 are grandparents, which are, most of them are in that high risk group, and they're not going to be able to come. So for them to be able to live stream that and get that to the grandparents is great.
Yeah, we're extremely proud about the opportunity that we're going to be able to provide for our community. And again, someone who misses it live will still have the opportunity to see it for over a couple days over YouTube Live. We'll leave it up there before we have to take it down. So let's talk about gate revenue. Okay, we've talked about all the good things. Here's some things that we do I want to bring to your attention just so that you're aware of it. High school gate revenue, on average, we take in $106,000. That's all 4 high schools, an average of the last 3 years. Okay, that's through our gate revenue through ticket sales. Our max revenue, if we were to be able to sell every ticket for every contest all year long, our maximum revenue that we could generate is $38,000. As you can see, that's a 63% reduction. Our middle school gate revenue average is $17,000. The max revenue is $14,000 that you could generate, which is an 18% reduction. And I want to make this point because I think this is really important for you, okay? On a non-pandemic year, no restrictions, our average is $17,000. Now, when we come up with that max revenue, we're saying that there's 100 people going to come to a soccer game at $5 a ticket, that 100 people are coming to a baseball, 100 people to a softball. Anything that's outside, there's going to be 100 people. Folks, that's not realistic. We're not going to generate $14,000 in a pandemic. We're just not going to. The place where we have an opportunity to sell those tickets is really going to be probably for football. Outside of that, we're not going to generate that amount of revenue. But I want to show you that is the max, because here's the other part. When I go back to this high school number of 38,000, folks, we're not going to sell 100 tickets to a soccer game. We're not going to sell 100 tickets to some of those outside sporting events. So even though we're saying that the max revenue is 38,000, I don't believe that's going to be a realistic number. So when we start thinking about what are some of our revenue sports that bring in our greatest amount of revenue, high school football, 3-year averages for all 4 high schools is 46,500.
Is that for the year?
For the year, yes, sir. Our max revenue, we sell every ticket, it's $4,800. That's a 90% reduction in the overall revenue. Basketball, gate revenues on average for all 4 high schools is $23,000. The max revenue is $4,200. And again, that's 25 at the JV girls. And then those 25 have to leave. We bring 25 more in. JV boys, 25 in, 25 out. We do that. Max revenue is $4,200. Again, 82% reduction. We look at our middle schools. They average about $4,000. Their max revenue is $1,500. And then for middle school basketball, again, $3,500 on the 3-year average. Their max revenue is $1,250, a 65% reduction. So in a normal year, what do we spend in athletics? Those estimated costs are athletic equipment. That runs anything like football helmets and shoulder pads, catching equipment, soccer nets, you name it. Practicing game balls, uniforms, athletic reconditioning for our football helmets, because those have to be reconditioned each year. The officials, that's pretty much a hard number of 26,000. We spend about 16,000 on athletic security. And then those miscellaneous expenditures where we talk about lawnmowers, gators, detergent to do laundry, coaches' shirts, concession stand equipment, all of those things from a miscellaneous expenditures. So we look at normally an athletic budget is somewhere running between $77,000 and $89,000. This year, we still have to have athletic equipment, but we're going to obviously, athletic directors are going to spend as less money as possible. And when we start thinking about, we still have to have practice and game balls. The one thing our schools aren't doing this year, we're not replacing uniforms. There's no general fund athletics going out to purchase uniforms. Athletic reconditioning, we still have to recondition those football helmets after the football season. That's going to be a quick turnaround from what we do normally. Officials, that cost is going to be reduced because the number of contests are going to be reduced, but that still is $16,000 per school. Our athletic security is going to be much less because we're only going to have one security officer at most athletic events except football, and there we will have 2. And then again, those miscellaneous expenditures could run anywhere between $5,000 to $7,000. We're trying to look at cutting that cost from $77,000 somewhere around in that $45,000 to $53,000 range. Now for some good news. Folks, it's been 236 days since we've had high school sports in North Carolina. 236 days. And I'm going to repeat what I've heard in this room multiple times this evening. Every opportunity that we have to get one step closer to normal.
Absolutely.
Hashtag give me some good news. So when we get K3 back, now we've got athletics.
Cold, you know it's cold.
We're one step closer to normal. And so I'm excited to say that again, we've got athletics started back up in Henderson County. Do we have some challenges? Most definitely. But I think it's important for you to be aware of the concerns that we have as a leadership team and where some of those pitfalls may be, but also to celebrate where we're at this point in time. And I'll turn it over for anything that Dr. Bryant wants to add.
I would only add this. Mr. Rhodes spent the better part of his presentation talking about giving kudos to folks that have put work in on this. We know Mr. Rhodes to be our human resources director, but he is also our district athletic director and provides tremendous leadership to our coaches, to our athletic directors, and you can see the energy that he's put into this effort. And I would just want to acknowledge that is another example of how special our school system is, that we all wear many hats and we do many jobs and we do many responsibilities. Mr. Rhodes has done an outstanding job getting us to a place where we can prepare to do that work, and that our student athletes are going to be able to compete in environments that are safe and successful. So we appreciate that work, Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. And I did have one more slide. I got any questions?
The question, really the only question I have is this: what do you anticipate being? How much money do we need to supplement to make sure that this budget can be adhered to?
After having some conversations with other colleagues of mine who are athletic directors within other counties, I think looking at the possibility of helping offset the cost of officiating would be a great place to start.
So how much do you need?
16 times 4.
Okay, so that's what this is per school.
This is per school.
So we're
16,000
looking
per
at
school.
70,000 roughly.
So 70,000, is this something, that could come out of those COVID capital dollars? Something that we can definitely talk about.
I think we
I want you
we
to,
have to.
we have to, and I want you to explore selling ads across the system.
Mhm.
Let's make it easier on ourselves, not have 4 different people doing it. And let's come up with some pricing. Let's talk to some folks. Me and you can have a conversation, and let's come up with some pricing on how we can advertise those and how that would look. And let's go out there and go get those advertisers.
Mhm.
So what I think, Mr. Craven, I like the idea. I love the idea. And I think from my perspective, what would be in my best interest right now for our school system is to reach back out to the Pixelot folks and the National Federation, High School Federation, to find out exactly what can we do,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Because I think that is going to be dependent on what ads we can sell.
Yeah.
Because I think the idea is great. Once we're able to recognize what we can do and how many ads we can sell, we can start creating some ad packages, because the 2 sports that people are going to want to advertise mostly are going to be football and basketball. And I think we have enough time to go ahead and explore some of that. I will do my very best to bring you and the board back something in December. Forgot it's November almost.
Scott, here's a question that school board might need to give some direction, or at least you, to the schools. I'm sure it's going to come up. Can individual teams have fundraisers?
So, Coach, we've already addressed that. And one of the things, and I'll have Dr. Bryant jump in here as well, what we've asked our student athletes not to do, and our coaches, is not put those folks in a position where they're out trying to sell you something, where I hand you something and you give me money back in return. So I'll give you an example. One of the things within our school system has been very popular for years is the food cards. Those food cards generate a lot of revenue for those individual sports. Sometimes athletic directors use that for fundraisers for the entire athletic department, but sometimes individual sports do that. Right now, like for example, some schools are saying, give me 10 email addresses, 20 email addresses. They're doing it electronically and selling those this year to try to continue to have that fundraiser. And where there's not this transfer of money. So people can do that either electronically, or they can come to the school and they can pick that up from the front desk. So we're taking the student athlete out of the middle, because again, their safety is the utmost importance for us during this pandemic.
So out of curiosity, some of the schools that possibly might be doing that, has there been a direction that's?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Because
I would, I'd like you to get back to us before December.
Yeah, I was thinking that
I
too.
want to know a hard number on what it's going to cost to get the officials for our schools. Like, what would that cost if we decided to take on something like that? What does that cost to the school system for everybody? Not West, not East, everybody.
Okay.
And then I want to know some ad packages and how that can be done sooner rather than later. Because volleyball starts next week, right?
Right.
And hopefully we're going to be pushing this out on Thursday. We've got some people buying it. I'd like to see if we can get that going as quick as possible. And then maybe we can make some decisions on if we can help take care of that.
Let me just clear up 2 issues I think are important for you guys to hear before I finish up this presentation. 2 things. One, that $16,000, that's for high school sports. Okay?
That's not
It's
middle
not
school.
That's not middle school. So the middle school number is going to be much less. Okay. And I've got those numbers as well. And I would also say this, is that as we look at what that commitment might be on the part of the board, I think it's also important for us to look at it throughout the entire year, because if our fan participation If that number goes up, then the amount of money that we may need to supplement it goes down.
Sure.
So, you know, what that number is today may not be the number in March,
Yeah, I'd like to have it in the piggy bank just in case they need.
without a doubt.
Yeah,
Worst case scenario,
and
yes, sir.
just plan on the whole thing, in case we get back into a situation to where we can't have, you know, outside gathering limitations are 25. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. And I mean, when you think about 236 days, our children have not had sports. I can't look at another student and tell them I'm responsible for taking away a normal. I can't. They've got to have this, even if they can't have fans there and they can't supplement the money. We've got to be able to provide this for them. It's very important.
Any other questions?
Well, as far as advertising, like if e-golf was going to do something, would we, how would the advertise? Is it a 15-second ad or is it words on
That's
the
what he needs to
bottom?
go and
So
figure
currently,
out.
the way I understand it, the only
Either
thing that
one.
would, currently, the way it's being communicated through our athletic directors who've called to ask, that it comes in just like a business card or like an ad, just the picture of e-golf motors, right? And that would be what would be on the left side or the right side or on the underlying ticker. I've seen
Okay.
examples of where 10 or 15-second commercials have been used as well. What I will do is research what we can do.
Sorry, I missed that part.
Yeah, no, you're good. I'm going to research what we can do. I'll report back to you, and I will have a hard number for you, exactly what the officiating costs at 25 and 100 fans will be.
Thanks, sir.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Can't
let's,
be enough to
Yes,
put a lot of stuff into it.
I got a big advertising budget.
well, all car dealers around here, I know what the cost to put all those ads, and
Yeah.
it's not cheap. All right, construction update. Let's fly through this thing.
Fortunately for you, this is a time-delayed speed building of Hendersonville High School, so Mr. McMurray can hit go, and we can watch Hendersonville High School. This is a feature that is,
awesome.
yes, sir, that has been available to us, so you can actually watch the work being done since late last year, early May, if you will. And just let everybody take an example of taking a look at that. The Board of Commissioners viewed this time-lapse film at their most recent board meeting. It's something that also gets published to us on a weekly basis via EarthCam. That camera is actually on top of Stillwell. So you're on the corner of Stillwell looking back at the construction site.
So cool.
Is that on our website?
No, sir, it's not.
That would be.
It's not accessible on our website. It's a permission-based camera system that we have access to. Anytime you'd like to see it, I can show it to you.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yes, sir.
Wait, that we have access to. Whose camera is it?
It's actually part of the construction firm, and Henderson County is the one that does that. So we have rights to viewing it. Yes, sir.
Dang.
That's so, now is that
That's,
the bottom by the gym? That's the cafeteria, right? That was like
Yes,
right
ma'am, bottom
underneath
right.
it?
The B building.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you noticed with the way that finished there, one of the exciting parts is it was a huge milestone for the project to have that crane off-site. So when you saw that finish and then you see the steel work coming in there and all the work that's going to be able to happen over the winter period, again, this has been an exceptional effort that continues to progress along at a very advanced pace. So glad to
I
share
didn't
that
see
with
the
you.
dates down at the bottom the
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah,
I was so busy watching the work.
Yep, if you want to watch it again, you can follow those days like all the way back. to
I
May.
am.
Yes.
You can click each camera too.
Very much
Awesome.
so. So glad to kind of keep you posted on that front. I'm going to segue, Mr. Craven, with your
Yes.
permission to the child care services update.
Yep.
And it really just kind of segues what you heard from Mr. Sosha earlier today. A couple of notes that I would make for you.
Hold on. I hit the camera thing.
You're fine.
ready for you.
I
Ms.
didn't know,
Holt.
I didn't know
Ready for
mine
you.
would make noise. This didn't.
I forgot
Okay,
to mention
sorry.
it also comes with elevator music that you can
Sorry,
listen to
I
as part
turned it
of
off.
that work.
I was very excited.
In the child care services update, just remind you on the next slide there that there's a little bit of information that talked about where our year finished in June. We'll continue to bring this to your attention as we work through this particular information. In the slide just beyond this one, you'll also see the chart that we promised to show you each and every time. And I want to draw your attention specifically at this time to August and September again for how they have been revised since our last board meeting. So when we were together in October, August was originally reporting $16,000 as a deficit. We talk about how that money comes to us delayed when we receive reimbursements and otherwise, and how that reporting works. So that number's been revised down to an $8,000 loss. September's been revised from $29,000, which is what you saw in your October board meeting, to $13,000. And then the P, of course, next to October reflects the $27,000, which is the projected association with that. I draw that to your attention again because I don't want us to not recognize that chart is being updated every month, so that what you're looking at is the total there. And then you heard Mr. Sosha mention a little bit earlier today that if you projected that out all the way across the entire school year, that there's a fund balance allocation of $140,000, which would leave our child care program at the end of this school year with a fund balance of $75,000 to $90,000 by the end. And so we'll continue to keep you updated with that.
But in my eyes, that's a very rosy profit loss statement. Losing only $140,000 is very rosy, because you're projected, and I hear you what you said about August and September about the reimbursements, but you're down 27 grand. So you're down almost $75,000 over these last 4 months. You extrapolate that over 12 months, you're looking at $225,000. Fund balance is $230,000. Then all of a sudden, you're going to put us in, not you, the situation is going to put us in a situation where we're going to have to make a really, really, really tough decision about people's jobs. And I've been beating this drum for 4 years. We need answers. We need some answers on this. Or else, I mean, the answer is going to be we have to get rid of it.
Certainly. And I think, again, the thing that I know I've mentioned before, and I would mention again, this board made adjustments to the costs for the program for people to participate in the program.
Right.
And we have not ever been able to fully realize those
Sure.
adjustments.
Sure.
We also have limited capacity that doesn't allow, just like child nutrition, the full realization of what attendance might look like.
Sure.
And there's the third point, and again, I want to emphasize what I said in the last time, is as we look at that loss, if all children who had been served since the start of this school year had to pay for that service,
Yep.
then their current operational loss, which is $48,000, would be a net zero if everyone had to pay.
But we're in a new normal, man.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but I only bring those elements because I feel like they're relevant, as you said, Mr. Craven,
Yeah.
to the conversation. We certainly have to have this dialogue because these are valued members of our employment.
Absolutely.
These are folks who have given their entire careers to this work and are supporting that work. And so when we look at it and have a conversation about the future of the program, it isn't the new normal, but many of the steps this board took to sort of see about the viability of the program, we have not yet even been able to do.
Sure.
And so we fully recognize those pieces of it. And as we continue the conversation, and as I've shared with each of you, been engaging with Mr. Rhodes in his current work to continue to support what we might look at in this program as it relates to its viability. We fully recognize that piece of it. And that's why, again, we're committed to continuing the conversation around this each month.
Can you adjust this chart to have it look like what's COVID lost? You know what I'm saying? Like in a different color / because I mean, that does make a difference. First of all, we're looking for one teacher now and having an issue hiring one teacher. I mean, I can't imagine if we had to say to 40 teachers, we can't help you with childcare. I mean, they would have quit their jobs. So, I mean, we've got to make adjustments to the program, and I know we've done some, but I think that is very relevant that it's just this
Yes, ma'am.
whole
I'll be
COVID
glad to.
thing
For our
is-
December meeting, we'll make sure that that accurately reflects what is COVID related and what it was outside of the operations of the program.
And Amy's point is relevant, and the reasons why we're in the negative are relevant. But at the end of the day, when the money's gone,
It's gone.
it's gone. And I mean, we just need to stop running in the negative, and because it's gonna get used up quickly. But I mean, I guess we're not gonna discuss it now. I'm not gonna solve it now. It seems like we always discuss it. And we always try to solve it, but nothing ever changes for whatever reason. Whatever. Next. That's how it is.
I know.
Do you have anything to add?
No, sir, but I'll bring updated information in December.
Thank you. Bernie? Financial report?
It's probably afraid to talk.
You ready? Don't get nervous on me now,
Won't
man.
be quite that mean to you.
Don't get nervous on me now. Well, it's going to be Scott's job here pretty soon. Well,
Yeah.
Scott's going to take it.
Okay. Local current expense, other restricted funds, through October 31, we're up to $11,859,000 of revenue. We've spent $7,127,000. Gives us a very good balance. As we know, the November is the local supplement, which is a nice $3 million payroll for our staff. But that's exactly why we have that balance very much high on the revenue side right now. Operations are, as I mentioned, they're pretty similar to what they were last year at this point in the game, as we now have a new budget in place to follow. Enterprise funds through September 30, a month back. As we were talking about before, building the budget, that's largely due to where we are now. Revenues for the first quarter, $776,000, and expenditures just over $1 million. We have essentially, as you look at the chart, we've essentially eliminated the local sales revenue. The first quarter last year was $256,000. We're $443 this year. That alone has had a huge impact on the child nutrition operations for the year.
I feel like that came all from my kid because he buys like 2 lunches.
Oh, yeah.
That number seems low.
And while we haven't had the revenue, there also does mean that our expenditures are down slightly because we're not buying as much food to sell. So it's sort of, there's a in-between balance there. Childcare, I believe we've talked about that one. We know where we are. First quarter revenue is $172,000 and expenditures $221,000.
Could I make one more point? I know this is Mr. Socha's, but I would like to draw attention to the bottom of that slide, what you look at on the table there as it relates to what we just spoke to. If full pay had been in place for all child care supported services, you see that negative $46,000. And prior year activity, the program was in a profit situation of $3,964 this time last year.
Ifs don't matter. What matters is what's actually going on. And what's going on is we're losing money. Regardless of how we got there, regardless of how we're going to get out of it, the bottom line is we are losing money. Ifs don't matter one bit. And so we have to readjust. I know we had come up with a game plan and then we got kicked in our throats with COVID like everybody else. And so we have to readjust again to get back in line with what's going on today, not what's going on last year. So we have to figure that out for today. You know what I mean?
Is this still an issue now, though? Because we're not giving away free childcare now, correct?
Well, we're still losing money though. We're spending 75,000, we're bringing in 50, 60, whatever it is. Eventually the honeypot goes away. And then we have to supplement those kids with local dollars to keep it going. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this? By the first of the year, we need to have some real answers, gentlemen. We need to have real answers on this stuff. I know you're jumping into this chair, but this one, childcare, we either have to find a provider that's going to come in and start putting some RFPs out there. We've got to find a way to get net revenue neutral on these. And if the salaries are too high from where we're at, wherever that is in the governor's orders of the day, well, then we have to make some choices. But we cannot just watch that fund balance go to zero and then go to negative. And then we supplement it from local dollars, period. Moving on.
Is that something that we could use the 400,000
Sure.
if we get to the, okay.
Sure.
I mean, I know that's not going to keep up forever, but
Yeah, I mean, we could absolutely, I mean,
But again, that doesn't change. I mean, eventually that'll
Right,
run out. I mean,
right. No, I think we definitely
That's
need to get some
insanity. Doing the
RFPs
same
out.
thing over and over and expecting different
Oh,
results.
absolutely.
All right, technology upgrade, central office boardroom, Mr. Caldwell, Rick
Yeah.
Fender.
Thank you. Kudos to Mr. Fender. He has, when you tell someone to do something, you want it done right. And that's what he's doing right now. He has gone, I think, to several different facilities. He just went to Buncombe County. Is that correct? I hate to give kudos. I love Tony Baldwin. I hate to give that superintendent kudos that we're looking at his stuff there. But yeah, he is.
Take all of our stuff.
He's exploring all different options. What his goal to you is to bring something, if Mr. Fender correctly, in December with basically, hopefully, bids with a cost and what you would like to see. I think he's even working with a company that once there's that amount of money there, that he'll show you what you're going to be looking at, what it would look like from the end user on what they would see. So that's where you'll have it December, and the board then can make a decision at that time, competing on what the bids come out to. So he's bidding it, and so Mr. Fender, I pretty well cover it.
Actually, sir, we may not have to bid it for reasons that we kind of delayed and don't have someone in front of you today. This year.
Okay.
Value for the dollar.
Sure.
So we've had Camcor and Tropical Communications. Camcor was today walking around getting, also provided us their quote today. Folks we got, message range from 5K to 79K.
Okay.
Certainly 5K is not something I think we should consider. Doesn't provide what we need, about 75 today.
Goodness gracious.
Is those on state contract, Mr. Fender?
Yes, this last Tropical Communications, I verified that with Debbie Patillo today.
Okay. You wouldn't have to bid. That's good news. You wouldn't have to bid, which means you're getting a low price. It's just, to be honest with you, if you're going to do something, let's do it right and do it one time. And I think that's
Yeah, as soon as you start getting information in, let's just start sending it to us or start putting it together. I'd like to start seeing those breakdowns of what you're looking at. I think it is really important because I'm looking at the live viewing right now and it's just terrible. And that's not saying anybody's doing anything wrong here. It's just
It is what
it is what it is, right?
And they did it for
And the screen looks like a big white blob behind me. And so I really want people to be able to interact more. We still have 55 people watching this stream. We have one person in the audience, right? So I think it's really important that we push through this.
The only thing that I would say, even though it doesn't really matter, but I would say be careful too, because I think y'all should spend the money to make sure we have the officials for athletics
Yes,
before
absolutely.
spending it on the
We
cameras.
can stick a pixel lot in here. Can we put one of those and they can bounce around? We can throw the ball to each other. And, that work?
I think that'll work.
Oh.
Man, I like that.
Yeah, just here. You talk.
Curveball.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
innovative.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
that's so December. Y'all will have fun with that one.
All right. We'll let you know how it
Hey,
works
let me know
out.
how it works out.
All right. Return to learn. Let's
Return to learn.
let's-
This will be a combined effort by basically the leadership team. There's a lot of slides that basically we just kept the same slides, so you just see kind of what's happening. And go to the next one, please. You know, we've used the Harvard number. It's when I talked to Steve Smith, this is the number he brings up. And if you watch the news, North Carolina's a hot spot. And of course, Henderson County, if you go to the next one. And Dr. Bryant, you want to go ahead and tell us kind of where we are with this one?
Yes, sir. Again, we've been tracking this Monday over Monday. The only change to that you'll see on November the 7th because the information is reported a little bit delayed. So the most current data today, if you were to go on the Harvard Global Health Institute, is from the 7th. So you're looking at Saturday's data. But you can kind of see what we've been tracking over time. We take it all the way back to when we first started reporting this information to you. Just a reminder, that's a 7-day rolling average per 100,000.
Questions? Let's keep going. Dashboard, I think that for us, as Mr. Egoff has always talked about, transparency. We're not trying to hide anything. And so for us, we put this dashboard here to let people know where the cases are. And so still there, and I believe it's been updated, correct, Dr. Bryant?
That's correct. Ms. McGowan Gorsuch updates the dashboard based on information that we receive from the health department each and every day, and that's updated by 9 a.m. each day. You see that at the top. So essentially, you're looking at a screenshot there. It's linked for you. But again, in an effort to ensure that transparency that we spoke about, we want to make sure that our school communities know that information. In just a moment on the next slide, you'll see the commitments, reminder of the commitments that have been made. But I want to offer a special detail. This is kind of breaking news. If there was a ticker down at the bottom of that, I'd share this with you because this came from the health department late today, so it's not on the slide. The health department has confirmed that they're going to be able to offer antigen testing for symptomatic students and staff at the schools starting next Monday, the 16th. So what that allows, it's completely optional again, but if you are symptomatic, you're able to take, essentially it's a rapid test. If it demonstrates a positive, that's a confirmed positive. If it demonstrates a negative, then you can have what's called a confirmatory PCR test as a secondary. But anybody who is symptomatic, those symptoms that we screen for, who would like to take advantage of that optional assessment, why that can be utilized, why the health department has been working toward structuring it that way via their school nurses, is it allows them to have a determination around a positive as soon as possible, and then conduct contact tracing, and again, eliminate the possibility of community spread as soon as possible.
So, sorry. So if it comes back negative, will they still have to go home and
Yes,
hey, I
ma'am.
want to get rid of that?
Okay, so, but we are not allowing kids who take one of the antigen tests to produce that to be able to come back into schools.
Produce what?
The negative test from the antigen test. So,
No, sir. It requires a confirmatory PCR, which is that secondary test. The antigen test is, as I understand it, again, I'm a different kind of doctor, so we're right on the threshold of how much I know. So I want to be clear, I'm not a
And you got
medical.
the smart mask on.
Exactly, I'm not a medical doctor, but I am a Dodgers fan,
That's
right?
right.
World Series champs.
That's right.
But specific to that
Yeah.
is the antigen test allows school nurses to test students and staff immediately if they demonstrate symptoms at any time. So that doesn't just mean the screeners at the beginning, but if in the middle of the day you start to develop a new cough and you say, oh, let's utilize the antigen test. If that indicates a positive, that's a confirmed positive, and they're able to move on with all of their work.
what does the negative mean?
Again, what the negative means is that you need a more advanced confirmatory test, that PCR test.
Well, positive would probably be you need to get a more confirmed test as well.
Sure.
Right?
But no, not well.
According to them, a positive is a positive. If you have enough of the virus, then you get a positive. But it doesn't guarantee you that a negative from the antigen test is a
I
guaranteed
keep
negative.
hearing those have a lot of false positives or false negatives on them, and that's why we are not accepting them, right, as a school system. If your kid goes out sick and they have a COVID test, we are not allowing those tests to be brought in as proof that they are negative right now.
The health department would tell us, correct? They
Right.
release and
No, not the health department. I'll give you a personal experience. My son was sick. We went, we all got tested. The reason I was not at this last board meeting a month ago, everybody tested positive, but we had calls from both school nurses from my children's school saying, you cannot take the rapid test and bring us a negative result of that. You have to have the whatever test to show that you're negative. So it took 2 days to get that one back. So is that still going to be the case?
It is. There's a difference between the test results and the quarantine periods that are associated with either being near a positive or being determined to be a close contact.
Okay.
A negative test really gives you information that says, I am not part of community spread. I'm not part of a transmission, but it doesn't change the quarantining period. So getting a negative test just confirms for you that there's been no transmission.
Okay.
The positive test is about having that information as soon as possible, which is why the school level antigen testing is something the health department has been working on. Again, it's completely optional. It gives folks the choice to do it. Parents can say no if they do.
How do they opt into that or opt out of that?
They'll be notified as soon
They'll be
as
notified.
anybody that has symptoms would be notified immediately.
And it must be symptoms. I
Right.
think that they
Asymptomatic people will not be tested.
Right.
You can't
It's
say,
not-
well, I want to see if I'm not
Who's giving the test?
the school nurses.
school nurses. But it,
The nurse isn't there.
We currently have school nurse staffing at every school site. So utilizing our full-time nurses and our PRNs, which are the part-time, they're staffing at every school.
Nice.
Okay.
So all of our direction is still going to come right from the health department. That
Sure.
would just. Okay.
Absolutely. As Mr. Caldwell has reminded me, the COVID is a medical issue, right? We're working within the educational ends of those things. Yes, ma'am.
Good deal.
Keep
Is
going.
the, I'm sorry, but is the quarantine period less if you have a negative test? There was the.
No, sir.
If
The
you test
quarantine period.
negative and have no symptoms for 24 hours.
No, sir. The way they health department is working through the quarantining period is when they determine a quarantine, they take it all the way back to when they determined that you were exposed to the positive.
Okay.
So, for example, they may not notify you until 7 days after they've tracked it back to a period of time, and then your quarantine period may only be 7 days at that point. But it depends on when your exposure to the person who tested positive is.
It's also different, like in my situation, again, my kid was sick. We, out of an abundance of caution, we made sure that everybody got tested immediately, right? They were fine, running around the house like mad people. They weren't sick. We knew he wasn't sick, but we wanted to be careful, right? In that case, the health department's never involved. And so then it's up to parents to produce a negative result after a 24-hour period or whatever without a fever to bring your kid back to school, correct?
Right. You're talking about the difference between, again, demonstrating any symptom and being directed to quarantine.
And
those
directed
are not the same thing. So when the health department directs you to quarantine, that's because they have determined that you have been exposed to somebody.
Oh, I thought you just had to
No, ma'am.
quarantine and go. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm listening to other people tell me.
The
stuff that-
stay-at-home part is different than I'm directing you to because they have determined that you've been exposed. Right.
Oh, Facebook.
Right. Okay.
Well, no, that was actually it.
This slide here, we continue to put this up there because this is communication. And if you remember, we started this in March, and then all of a sudden we started bringing students back. We talked about it's not if there's a case, it's when there'll be a case. And I'm not sure. I've not looked at it detailed if every school has had a case so far. I'm not sure, but
Not
there've
yet.
been some.
Not yet.
Not
Don't
yet.
jinx them today.
Don't jinx them.
please.
It's
Yes,
like the
sir.
field goal kicker who never misses one. But yet, I think that's why we continue to put it out there for communications. Next. Overview. Just basically where we are right now. And I'm going to let Dr. King, you've seen this slide. I'm going to let Dr. King talk a little bit about third grade, if you don't mind, and even K through 2, where we are with basically the learning as far as virtual being moving virtual to all virtual. Dr.
Yes,
King?
sir. So third grade was slated to start October 29th, and that happened to be a hurricane day with lots of power outages and trees down. But our third graders started that Friday. And actually, if Mr. McMurray doesn't mind, if you'll go on to that next slide, you'll see that increased that percent of daily attendees got higher, but some fluid movement there with the fully remote. But during the past month, since we've last met with you, we have had meetings with every elementary principal, and we've looked at layers of solutions to try to reduce the number of teachers who were teaching both face-to-face learners and remote learners simultaneously. So that number has been greatly reduced, and it's continuing to be reduced as we have created solutions both in schools by collapsing classes and created some solutions across schools. And for that, I have to give a big shout out, not just to school officials, principals, and teachers who have helped make all that work, but to parents. Because I recognize, and I know you recognize, many parents who started with a teacher August 17th got that call that we're trying to shuffle this, we're trying to make the best learning environment for everybody. And so some parents had to kind of have some of those last minute adjustments, and everybody it's not easy to make a change this far into the school year, but it's working and it is reducing that load. We've heard from some of our remote only families that it's actually better for them because they're not waiting on bathroom breaks or waiting on a snack break or something else that the face-to-face learners are having. So kudos to everybody involved for making that work. Again, if we're learning anything is true about this year, it's flexibility. And so we've seen everybody showing a great deal of flexibility.
Some schools had the capability in K through 3 to do it within their own schools. Others, we had to create pods. I think we just mentioned Bruce Drysdale. Dr. King, right offhand, do you remember some other pods that?
Atkinson, Fletcher, Edneyville, Dana.
Are all working together, correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. So
Clear Creek.
therefore, when a school, especially Atkinson, once again, you got that small school that has some virtual, but not enough to be able to collapse a class. I think they've gone to maybe Glen Marlowe, I think, for Atkinson, maybe. Like I said, I've seen the list, but we've worked hard to place those kids with virtual teachers to then allow just have all virtual and then face-to-face, especially in K through 3. Okay? Keep going. We asked for input from middle and high school teachers and kind of saying, well, how was Plan B working for you? How is A Day, B Day going? And Dr. King, I'll let you go through these slides.
Sure. This feedback form closed on a Friday at midnight. We sent that to you on Saturday, so you could see all of the feedback. We had 216 responses from middle school and high school staff members. I'll quickly take you through. As a reminder, these word clouds take the words that were used most often in feedback and make those the larger words. It's based on the number of times it showed up. But again, you had the full spreadsheet of all of this feedback. The first question was around what's been successful, and over again, very much like we saw in elementary, the success was they were excited to see students back in the building under Plan B, having not seen kids in the building since March. On the next slide, there was a question about what are some of the barriers that are within our sphere of control to Plan B implementation. And of course, a lot of that was around things like schedule, student engagement, planning, and the struggles with the remote and face-to-face teaching at the same time. And then we asked on the next slide for what are some potential solutions. And of course, lots of feedback there around planning time, creating planning time, working together, trying to have more resources and solutions for remote students, and a lot about student engagement as well, and the need to partner with our families to make sure that students are highly engaged. On the next slide, you'll see the question there about how can we better support you? What kind of support do you need? And you see the word virtual show up there pretty large. The idea that we need some time to plan and time to plan to help support those virtual learners as well as our face-to-face learners. And then the last question was very open-ended about what other feedback would you want to share? And you got the feedback there to see that it was very often about planning time, supporting all kids, workload, things like that. Again, a shout out to our teachers for, as we've all said, a lot of folks never plan to be an online teacher. And so they have quickly adjusted.
Next. Dr. Brian, I'll let you take this one, kind of where we are right now.
Yes, sir. And again, this is a summary of the slide that you have seen before about the fluid nature of that. We continue to monitor the local health data. We have provided transitions for that viability as it relates to the virtual option. Consideration for Plan A implementation, again, noting that right now there's been no change about what that would eliminate from the distancing standpoint in our classrooms and our school buses. We have great partners. I cannot, again, emphasize what you've heard Mr. Caldwell say enough. What our school nurses are doing right now, what our health department is doing right now, I think it's easy to forget that they're serving the entire community and not just us in terms of how they're doing that. They're doing an exceptional job. And then, of course, we're following the guidance that comes from state level governing bodies, and we are continuing to work through the instructional efficiencies that we can.
Any other question? 4th and 5th grade.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I have questions about. Are we going to talk about 4th and 5th grade? And then we did get some feedback from teachers about end of semester exams. I don't know if everybody was on that email.
We're working on that.
Okay.
We got that, but several more solutions that we're working on that we want to do what's best for the students in this situation, what's best for the staff in this situation. In fact, meeting with state superintendents in the morning to also explore some things. So
Okay.
I think that was one. Here's one idea, and basically there's going to be a lot more ideas to be shared, and we'll certainly bring that to me is we're working on that one.
No communication from the state to make any allowances from that fiasco?
Right now, I'm hearing that there's rumblings that the state board's going to allow us some flexibility, give us more days at the end.
That seems to be the
could be an
simplest
option.
answer if
I
they would
mean,
just.
To be honest with you, if you have to test within the last 5 days while the kids are in school, then but the kids are only there on A day, B day, it looks like, common sense would say you'd have 10 days because they're only there every other day. So those are the types of things that we're working on. Dr. King has also been meeting with directors across the state and also hearing some other ideas. So that's not just here's what we're doing and here's the solution. We're working on several other things for that.
Good. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for
The
bringing that
other
up.
thing is I have been asked by some teachers and some other community people to clarify. Apparently there's talk that we got notification from DHHS that we were going to go back to Plan C to direct us to do that. I have not received any of that, and I wanted to make sure that central office had not received. Okay, because I guess there's a bunch of teachers that are worried that we got some notification about going back to Plan C. So I wanted to.
If that was made, then it was certainly not made to my office, and why would it just be made to Henderson County? Because numbers are numbers, and therefore I think all other school systems across are still. Some are in B, some are in A, so therefore we are not. Right now, we're right now in B.
Okay. And then I'm all game for 4th and 5th. Especially looking at this dashboard, and I know that creates some busing logistics, and I don't pretend to know how we would work that out. But if we look at the elementary schools, their cases are so low. I mean, you're looking at, 1 or 2 when we've been back in school for quite a while now. I feel like that we could always dial back if the health department says, okay, we're having a pop-up in 4th and 5th grade. It seems like they can't social distance, or I just feel like it's so important for our kiddos to be in school. And so that's my opinion on it.
We followed this briefly. Slide number 3, October 26, 16.5. And we kept hearing if it was 8 or below or whatever, and that's the reason. Okay, well, that's fine. November 2nd, 0. And that's on page 5. You go to page 5. New cases reported on November 2nd, 0. Up and down the line. And that's after 16.5. Whether that 16.5 is the right number to look at, I'm not sure. Does it matter? Not sure. But it's 0. Today, ask Blair, stock market up over 1,000. Over 1,000. Over like 5%, 4.5% in one day. Up over 1,000. Why? Pfizer came out, and there's another biotech that came out that said their mass vaccine for antibodies over 90% successful. You're like, okay, great. That's awesome. Okay, you know what? They also said, when is it going to be available for anybody who wants it, like on the store shelf, ready to go? June. June.
Holy cow.
June. And that's, okay. So in June.
Wow.
I don't know. And then you're going to have, are 100% of people going to take it in June? No. The most I've heard is 50. It's usually 40%. So in other words, COVID will always, it's going to be here. It's going to be here for a long time. Well, you know what? I was watching a football game last night. I was up past my bedtime, but you know what? I had a long weekend. So I was up and I was enjoying a blowout, and I was still watching every minute of it. It was good to unwind. Well, you know what? They had a show on the Channel 7 or Channel 4, whatever it was, WBT, whatever it was. And you know what the name of the segment was? Living with COVID. Living with COVID. Because that's what we're going to have to do.
Yep.
We're going to have to figure out a way to live with COVID. And we can't keep the people out of the school. If the governor says K through 5 is on A, we don't need to be the training wheels. I mean, we don't need to be I'm getting excited. I can't even come up with the words now. But we don't have to be the governor and as the slowdown. I mean, we need to find a way to go with what the governor says. And I haven't heard any plans of getting to 4 or 5. You know, they'll say, well, the numbers are still up. Well, the numbers are up now and there's 0 cases. So I don't want to hear the numbers are keeping us out of school. You know, what's the reason? I mean, and I will say this, I'm a parent with 3 people in public schools. Now, I know not everybody has public schools, but a couple people on this board do have children in public schools. I see it every single day. These kids are hurting. They're falling behind. I mean, I see it. You see it in the letters. It's not going to work. You know, it just, so, you know, and I'll also, this is an honest, and this is not a school board member, but I'm saying, hey, look, you know what? Thanksgiving is not too far away. Christmas is not too far away. I don't see how in the ATLL we're going to get 4th and 5th back before Christmas. I mean, I honestly don't. I'm like, it takes a lot of planning, takes a lot of doing. But you know what? I will bet dollars to donuts in January, we are still in this exact same situation. Exact same.
Yep.
So what are we going to do? Are we still going to say we can't take 4th and 5th back in January? No, we can't. And I want to know, and I know I'm being out of line, and I'm just excited, but I just want to know in the future or next board meeting or something. I mean, we've got to have a plan, assuming everything's the same, assuming we're at 16.5 in January with 0 cases. Are we going back to school?
I'll let you know about conversations that I've had with senior staff, specifically Dr. Bryant. And we have looked at that first of the year time period, that second semester time period is maybe a time period to start looking at bringing 4th and 5th grade back.
That's too long.
It's a long time, but you know, we've got a lot of days here in November that we're off, and then
you can't. I mean, with
Christmas gets started.
Yeah.
And
but
so
I want to start planning in January.
We do need to have a plan to what that looks like. What is their professional opinion with what Cooper brought out with the transportation and yada, yada, yada. They're right. What is the plan? And we need to start being more cognizant of that. And people are getting a little itchy.
Sure. And we have been planning. And I think right now that 4th and 5th have a plan because it's the same thing as K through 3. When you bring more students back, you've got to move virtual over. So right now, principals have a plan for 4th and 5th on moving virtual to 1 teacher when schools can collapse. Now, we have not moved children in pods yet until we bring 4th and 5th back. But some 4th and 5th grade schools have already collapsed and give this teacher the virtual and the other 2 the face-to-face children. So the plan is pretty well when you say you got a plan as far as transportation goes. The plan is you're going to run buses, because if you try to stick to 1 per seat, and I'm not going to be here, so I can just tell you how it is, okay? But if you try to put 1 per seat, you're going to bring kids in at 10:30 and you're going to send them home at 1:30.
Right.
When you make the decision to go with K, 4, and 5, you're saying there's going to be 2 and 3 to a seat. There's nothing you can't get by. You're also going to make a decision on this, and this will be something that we'll have to look at. But I've had Mr. Rhodes continue. When you start collapsing some classes, you know, it's always that you've got a handful here and a bigger handful in this school. You're going to have some 4th and 5th grade classes that could, when they combine to put virtual over here, you could have some classes at 26 and 27 and 28 kids. Now, I've been walking around talking to 5th grade teachers about it. And what have I heard? I've heard the same thing that we heard since we started bringing kids back. I've got teachers who are ready for 4 and 5. I've got to be honest with you. I've got some teachers who are feeling good right now because things are kind of quieting down. They're in the groove. They've just moved in their school. They've just moved virtual over here. They're in the groove. That all of a sudden, if you tell me in 2 weeks, I've got to have 27, then all of a sudden I've got some issues with it. I mean, I think when you start looking at dates, I think the dates would simply be, you could transition slowly. You might could look at a group coming back after November the 30th, maybe just 4th grade.
That's what I
And
was
then
gonna
go ahead and
suggest.
have 5th grade after January or bring both of them back. I think all of a sudden, if you tell people right now, we have been planning and we've been working.
I know,
think
I
Dr.
didn't mean to say
No,
it.
but Dr. Bryant has looked at transportation. We might be able to pick up 1 or 2 buses from our middle and high, but it's certainly not like we can just bring a whole fleet down there and bring in all these kids. You're making a decision to put 2 and 3 on a seat, which you can, but yet it just brings back this whole social distance thing that you're not going to have it. And when you have 27 4th graders or 27 5th graders, once again, you heard me say this from the facility side, they're in smaller classrooms, bigger kids. You're not going to have 6 feet. In some instances, you're not even going to be close to having 3 feet. Okay. Now, you could start looking at it. You can plan on what date you want to look at. We have not brought it up because right now we have had some schools move virtual here and it's quieting down. I guess the issue is, when are you ready to bring 4th and 5th grade back? I'm going to turn over to Dr. Bryant because it's going to be more of a decision and he's going to have to deal with it in December if you do something on November the 30th or January. But right now, that's what I've heard, Jay, if that makes sense. That it's still you've got someone at 27, 28 in a class. You still got some teachers that really is becoming, that will be an issue because right now, I think our 1st grade is 21. I think maybe the most I've seen one time is 20 or 21 when they collapsed. They're still, the younger the children, the higher you go up in age, what I'm hearing, and then also their kids are bigger and they're taking more space. Dr. Bryant, I'm turning it over to you, bro. This is called tossing the keys, my friend.
I would only reiterate what you heard Mr. Caldwell say. It just changes the conditions. And I think we have to accept the way that those change conditions for students, the way that they change conditions for our staff, acknowledging that part of it. And also recognizing one of the goals that we had from the start. I'm proud that the dashboard reads the way that it does, because what we said is we were going to open safely and stay open. Not that we were going to open and then close 2 weeks from now, or open and then close 3 weeks from now. The goal was open and stay open. And so the work that's being done by our students, because they're adhering to those 3 W's, the work that's being done by our staff in terms of our safety procedures and our guidelines and all of the work that we've been doing to prepare for being open, I believe is in part why we see the dashboard in the way that it is. And certainly the priority for every child. I think when we think of 4th grade and 5th grade, we also think of 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade and seniors that you heard Mr. Rhodes talk about. Every child would benefit from being back in school more frequently right now.
But there's something that we can't do, but there are also some things that we can do. And what I said before about on our chairperson's observations, I mean, the mock election, we're built on the freedom to choose. The parents need to be able to choose whether to send their kids back or not. They need to choose knowing, you know what? Sometimes you might not get a bus. Maybe you should choose to take them to school. Or maybe, you know what? There might be more kids in school. Maybe you should choose to have them home. But that's what we need to have, and that's what we don't have. We don't have the choice. We don't have the right to choose. And that's what we need to have.
Right. We're taking that right away from parents. If they don't feel comfortable, they can keep them home. I just feel like, it just makes me want to sit here and cry when I think we'll do it in January. Like my little girl, my 8-year-old, is a different person than she was a few weeks ago now that she's going to school every day. She is a different person. She is a happy, healthy little girl right now. A few weeks ago, she was not. It has made all the difference in her life and her happiness to be able to be there with her teacher and her friends. And we are the ones keeping fourth and fifth graders from that. Nobody else. Our governor and the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services say that it's safe. They know the numbers in the classroom, they know the bus situation, and they're deeming that it's safe. So we're saying no to that. And I'm not comfortable saying no to it anymore.
Well, and I also want to say, and I don't want to feel that y'all are saying no. We're the ones that
Right.
said this. We're going to follow the numbers. We're going to do the. And yeah, well, you know what? I mean, I'm saying, okay, you know what? Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's get the kids back in school based on when you see a line of zeros, and then I see the letters that are coming in about how their kid is just. You know, it just. I texted Amy. I think I texted a couple people. I said, "Man, I'm really struggling with this. I mean, I feel like I'm keeping fourth and fifth out of class. When I hear these stories about these kids with anxiety or depression or whatever, I'm just like, I feel like, oh my God, I'm doing that, and I know it's just like."
Well, those zeros, that's just for the school system. The other number was not zeros.
Dr. Bryant, when are you prepared to bring fourth and fifth grade back?
I think that would be something that we would continue to talk about as we move forward. I don't feel comfortable giving a date right now. I understand, I hear the board loud and clear, and I hear the direction that we're receiving. But I think one of the most important things for us to do is to hear that feedback right now and come back to you with that work. One of the things that this board has done is given the superintendent the latitude to make plans to do so before a board meeting.
Sure.
And when we hear that conversation, that latitude had been granted up until third grade up until this point. I think if this board talks about wanting to see a plan that is sooner than December the 14th, that same latitude would be necessary.
Well, you'll have the keys on the first, so like you said, them keys will be tossed, right?
I mean, and technically we're still bored. I mean, if we need to meet again next week or something, I mean, I'm game.
Well, we'll discuss that, me and Mr. Caldwell and Dr. Bryant. Any more questions? Any more comments, concerns?
I think I threw up enough. Sorry.
Anything else from staff?
Just in general operations, it's been my honor and pleasure. It has been, not is, it's been my honor and pleasure to serve.
Ms. Corn, would you like to adjourn us?
I move that we adjourn.
Mr. Wood? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, folks. I said 2 hours. I lied.